Oops. Welcome to the City Council regular meeting this Monday evening, June 2nd. I now call this meeting to order. Please join me and rise in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Certainly, Mayor Newsom. Councilmember Diaz-Nash?
Here.
Councilmember Svirko-Goditsky?
Here.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lorraine?
Here.
And Mayor Newsom.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to participate virtually. There are several ways to participate. For those attending in person, complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the clerk. If participating remotely, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, press *9 and raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for each specific item. Sorry. We have several ceremonial items to start off tonight. The first ceremonial item is the Mayor's Quarterly Award, and I ask Dana Storr and the San Mateo County Fair team to come forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Newsom, Honorable Council, and City Manager Kajorkian.
So I'm going to start. Tonight, we're proud to present the City of San Mateo's Quarterly Hero Award to someone whose leadership has had a profound and lasting impact on our community, Dana Storr, the Chief Executive Officer of San Mateo County Event Center. Dana has served the Event Center for over a decade, first as a Chief Operations Officer and now as its CEO. Under her visionary leadership, the Event Center has become more than just a home for the county fair, which is this week, so that's also important. It has truly become a Swiss Army knife for our community. During COVID-19 pandemic, Dana and her team rapidly transformed the Event Center to a vital public health site, first as a testing center and later as a drive-through vaccination hub. When our community needed a response, Dana and her team delivered. Thanks to her leadership, the Event Center has evolved into a resiliency hub, capable of sheltering both people and animals during natural disasters. This commitment to preparedness continues to grow as the fairgrounds expand. The center also has played a key role in everyday life. Its food distribution site for Second Harvest of Silicon Valley helps neighbors facing food insecurity every Thursday. It provides parking for our school district buses, reducing traffic from our residential neighborhoods. It's also the home to a wide array of events, from tech expos and corporate gatherings to volleyball tournaments and private celebrations, all right here in the heart of San Mateo. Dana has ensured that the Event Center is not only a technologically modern and regionally accessible facility, but also deeply community-minded. Her team continues to be a collaborative and valued partner to the city of San Mateo. Dana, on behalf of our grateful city, we thank you for your service, your innovation, and your unwavering dedication to our community. We're honored to recognize you as our quarterly hero. Congratulations. Dana, in a few minutes, I'm going to come down and present you with this. But first, I'm going to roll right into our proclamation for fair, the county fair. Sorry, we're on a tight agenda.
That's okay.
Okay. And now a proclamation. Whereas the San Mateo County Fair is a cherished annual event that brings joy and a sense of community to residents of San Mateo County. And whereas the fair provides a platform for celebrating agriculture, showcases, local makers and talent, and offers entertainment for all ages. And whereas the fair's success in attracting over 100,000 visitors contributes to the economic vitality of our city and county by hosting visitors and supporting local businesses. And whereas the city of San Mateo recognizes the positive impact on the fair for our community. Now, therefore, I, Robert Newsom, Mayor of City San Mateo, and on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby support the San Mateo County Fair and its mission to foster a thriving community. The city will work to promote the fair within our community through public awareness campaigns and community outreach efforts, and officially make May 30th to June 8th San Mateo County Fair Week. Further, be it resolved that the City Council encourages residents and businesses to participate in and support in the fair's activities. Further, be it resolved that the city will explore opportunities for collaborative partnerships, including potential financial contributions or resource sharing to further enhance the fair's success.
Thank you so much.
Now you have the mic.
Thank you, Mayor Newsom. Thank you all, honorable city council as well as everybody in attendance. Come out and visit the fair. We have an absolutely wonderful fair. We have a ton of babies in the barn. We had a colt born the other day on property and a baby calf. And so I hope you all come out and get a chance to experience. I have some of my staff here, so thank you very much for the recognition. We love it. We care about this community and in its times of celebration, as well as to be there in times of crisis. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our council's going to come down and take a picture with you.
And I just want to quickly recognize, I also have one of our board of directors, Jim Tucker. So Jim, can you come on down? Thank you. What? We do our best.
Yes. Next up, Building Safety Appreciation Month proclamation. And we're going to ask Zachary Dahl, our Director of Community Development, to come forward. Good evening, Zach. We have a proclamation for you. See how many of these I can get through quickly. Whereas the city of San Mateo is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential roles of our homes, building, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. Sorry, I should give you guys a minute to get up here. Whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the building environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials who assure us our safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas Game On, the theme for Building Safety Month 2025, encourages all of us to raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year, in observation of Building Safety Month, people come from all over the world to are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. And therefore, now I, Rob Newsom Jr., the mayor for the city of San Mateo, and on behalf of the entire city council, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Building Safety Month. Go ahead.
Thank you. That was a lengthy proclamation, but I think it underscores the work that our building team does day in and day out. And I'm surrounded by many of our folks from Plan Check, from our permit center, and from our inspection team who work and live and breathe this every day. So just a couple of words to kind of support that. Our staff works hard year round to ensure that the places we all live, work, and play are safe. When we're doing our jobs right, our best work goes unnoticed, which is kind of the point. Buildings stand strong, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems work as intended, and no one gets harmed or seriously injured. Behind every plan review, inspection signature, and permit card is a group of dedicated, highly knowledgeable, and well-trained professionals who care deeply about this community. They're solving problems, coaching builders and first-time homeowners, and sometimes even refereeing neighborhood disputes, all while keeping safety, consistency, and fairness front and center. The job of code officials, inspectors, plan reviewers, and support staff is both technical and deeply human. It's not just about compliance and checking boxes. It's about making sure a child's bedroom is safe, a small business has a foundation to grow on, and when the unexpected happens, whether it's an earthquake, a power outage, or an El Nino storm, our buildings are safe and ready to protect lives. This proclamation shines a light on the work that's usually behind the scenes, but it is absolutely essential in keeping our homes, businesses, and community spaces safe, resilient, and durable. The theme this year, Game On, is a perfect reminder that we're all players in this effort, and our team of building professionals is showing up every day, ready to do the work and do it well. Thank you again for recognizing Building Safety Month and raising awareness and helping celebrate the team that quietly keeps San Mateo safe and strong and thriving every day. Thank you.
Come down for a picture.
Yes.
All right. Our final celebratory proclamation is for Older Americans Month, a proclamation. And we are joined by two people, Tom Leese, the chair of the Senior Advisory Commission, and Debbie Soon from Self Help for the Elderly. If they would please come down. Yep. If there are other seniors that are involved with any of these commissions, please come down and join them. Yes, I'm talking to you, Anna. And Ellen. All right. Proclamation. Whereas May is Older Americans Month, a time for us to recognize and honor the city of San Mateo's older adults and their immense influence on our community. And whereas through their wealth of life experience and wisdom, older adults guide our younger generations and carry forward an abundant cultural and historical knowledge. And whereas older Americans improve our community through intergenerational relationships, community service, civic engagement, and many other activities. And whereas community benefits when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds have the opportunity to participate and live independently. And whereas the city of San Mateo is committed to creating an age-friendly environment as outlined in the City of San Mateo's Age-Friendly Action Plan, which includes initiatives such as fostering intergenerational programs, prioritizing the repair of sidewalks frequented by older adults, and launching an age-friendly business certification pilot program to encourage local businesses to cater to the needs of older adults. And now, therefore, I, Robert Newsom Jr., Mayor for the City of San Mateo, and on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 as Older Americans Month. And I call upon all residents to join me in recognizing the contributions of our older citizens and promoting programs and activities that foster connection, inclusion, and support for older adults. Congratulations. Debbie or Tom, would you like to say something before we come down for a picture?
I have something to say. If that's
Please,
okay.
please.
So I had to write mine in big print, so I'm not proud. Oh. So again, thank you so much for inviting us. I'm Debbie Soon, as Robert said, with Self Help for the Elderly, a 501c3 nonprofit whose mission is to serve seniors on the margin through programs that combat food insecurity, provide safe havens for socialization and continuing education to ward off loneliness and isolation, and to provide affordable housing and health services. We are so delighted to have this City Council supporting us. It's so timely that this month's commemoration of older Americans has the theme of Flip the Script, right on the heels of Self Help's Spring Banquet, which some of you attended, thank you, where we celebrated longevity to counteract stereotypes about aging. We honored 17 super seniors. These are those who are 90 and older. And we're fortunate enough to have all of them who are engaged, kicking, alive, having boyfriends, girlfriends, giggling at robbing the cradle because they eyed a cutie who's only 70 years old. Right? One of them, two of them actually were centenarians. One of them celebrated his 100th birthday by riding his bicycle 100 miles.
Wow.
He is 30 years my senior. I will never complain about riding 30 miles on my bicycle again. I hope that in my lifetime, our lifetime, we can eliminate the stigma associated with needing and asking for help. It doesn't mean that we're helpless. I hope that we will get past the stereotype that a challenged body means a feeble mind. I hope and pray that this once-a-year celebration of older Americans does not get relegated to a simple line in a Hallmark card. I know that you, City Council, our city mayor, and actually our city manager won't let this happen. I trust you to continue to support our most at-risk seniors, but I hope that you will also continue to call upon the older members of this community to contribute our time, experiences, and unique perspectives to help you build an even better San Mateo. Thank you so much for honoring us tonight.
All right, let's take a picture. And now we continue with our consent calendar. We now move on to the beyond the ceremonial portion of tonight's meeting, which includes the business items that are being considered by the council. For that reason, I'd like to remind all of you in the room and online that we'll be enforcing our rules of decorum. As such, we do not allow for cheering, jeering, or booing during the business portion of the meeting, as this tends to put a chill on public comment. Our goal is to ensure that all perspectives are heard. Our motto is give respect, get respect, and we appreciate your cooperation. I will say, at the end of our consent calendar, we will be swearing in people, and we will make the exception and allow you to applause then. No jeering. City Clerk, can you please read the consent calendar?
With pleasure, Mayor Newsom. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered by the council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion without discussion. If discussion is desired, that item may be removed and considered separately. Item number 4, Community Composting Program Agreement. Item number 5, SB 1383, Recovered Organics Waste Projects, Procurement Services, Agreements and Amendments. Item number 6, Citywide Street Rehabilitation Seal Project 3A Agreement. Item number 7, Gasoline Fuel Procurement and Delivery Agreement. Item number 8, Diesel Fuel Procurement and Delivery Agreement. Item number 9, 2025-2026 School Crossing Guards Agreement. Item number 10, Local Streets and Roads Maintenance and Rehabilitation Project List Fiscal Year 2025-26 Adoption. Item number 11, Library Personal Computer Replacements Adoption. Item number 12, Bulk Mailing and Printing Agreements Approval. Item number 13, Senior Transportation Get Around Program Agreement. Item number 14, Fiscal Year 2025-26 General Obligation Bond Adoption. Item number 15, Bus Transportation Services 2025 Summer Camp Field Trips Agreement. Item number 16, Side Letter of Agreement Community Services Supervisor Classification Representation Adoption. Item number 17, Legal Advertising Services Agreement. Item number 18, East Hillsdale Park Playground Improvement Project Contract. Item number 19, San Mateo County Measure K Grant Agreement. Item number 20, Wastewater Treatment Plant Digester 2 Coating Project Agreement. And finally, item number 21, Boards and Commission Appointment Subcommittee Appointment Recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Are there any members of the council who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
I'd like to move adoption of the consent calendar.
We
Oh.
have to make sure that no one else wants to pull anything first.
I don't want to pull anything, but I did want to make a brief comment. Just that I'm very excited about the East Hillsdale Park playground improvement. And I think that it's, incredible to see that we're going to get this park done and we're getting Central Park done next year. So happy to see that on the consent.
Absolutely.
If I can do an update, they started construction at Central Park today. So everybody go take a look.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, seeing no objections and no one want to pull anything, is there anyone? Sorry. Any members?
Public comment?
Yeah. Any members of the public who wish to comment on consent calendar items? Now would be the time for you to make your comment. This is for consent calendar items only.
Yes, Mayor Newsom, I've received one request in chambers for the consent calendar. So that'll be 3 minutes per speaker. And we'll invite Kevin Simpson up to the dais.
Welcome.
Hi, folks. I hate to slow things down here on the consent calendar because it's a long one. But I wanted to address the most controversial one on that list, which is the school crossing guard agreement. And the reason why it's controversial is there's a big hole in this agreement. There is no crossing guard provided for the bus stop near Humboldt and Cypress, where hundreds of kids every day cross the street on one of our busiest streets. There's no crossing guard. The police are out there maybe one day a week as they can afford the time to keep people from going through the bus stop. And sometimes the bus drivers will stop and physically get in the way of oncoming traffic that are going through the red crossing lights. I don't know why the school district or PD hasn't addressed this, that we need a regular crossing guard who's there every day to stop people from blowing through those bus lights, which I see happen every single morning and every single afternoon when I walk my dogs. I don't have kids, but I don't want to be there the day one of them gets run over. So I would hope that somewhere in our crossing guard program, we can make capacity to protect kids at this very busy school bus stop. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Newsom, that concludes public comment on the consent calendar.
Thank you. And Mr. City Manager, can we mark that as a follow-up item, please?
Yeah, I can go ahead and follow up.
You want to say something else?
No, that's what I wanted us to follow up in a 2x2 about that, because I believe the schools have to request crossing guards, correct?
Well, it's a joint financial contribution and partnership, so that's something we'd have to talk to the school district about.
Also, there'll be another school in that location soon, so there'll be even more pedestrian traffic. So we should definitely.
We'll follow up. Thank you.
Thank you for your public. Any more public comments? All right, we will close public comment. And now I will ask if there's a motion from the council to approve the consent calendar.
I move to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
Mr. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Certainly. Councilmember Fernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember Svieko-Kaditsky,
Yes.
Councilmember Diaz-Nash,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Lorraine,
Yes.
and Mayor Newsom.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
All right. And one of the things that we just passed, and before we move on with the rest of tonight's business, we would like to recognize our newly appointed and reappointed members of our boards, commissions, and committees. At this time, I ask you to please come forward. As you make your way down, the city clerk will administer to all of you your oath of office. Will the newly appointed and reappointed commissioners, including our youth commissioners, please come to the front of the dais to take your oath? That was redundant.
Please raise your right hand and
Yeah.
repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sarah Fields,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and to the Constitution of the State of California.
and to the Constitution of the State of California,
That I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations. One more.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a picture.
Allison. Well.
Congratulations. Hello, happy Pride Month. Congrats.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congrats. Welcome to your new home. Hi, congrats.
Congratulations. I'm excited for you. Congratulations.
Okay. Come on,
Stephen May.
get in the middle. Can we squeeze it in a little bit right here? I'll get in the middle.
Valerie.
What's our buzzword though? I don't know. Who? Shayla. Sabrina. Dahlia.
Deborah Kaiser, Deborah.
Deborah's over here.
Sally.
Sally. All right, you guys, flip yours open so we can see them for the picture. There you go, flip them open. Yeah, well, make sure it's right reading. There you go. Everybody's are open, we can see them all. Okay. Well, I'm just gonna say on three, thank you for your service to the San Mateo. That's too long. Thank you for your service. 1, 2, 3. Thank you for your service. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it, guys.
Congratulations.
Give everybody another minute to clear out. All right. Missing our clerk. There he is. Okay. Next on the agenda is public comment. Members of the public wishing to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda, I don't know how that's possible, may address the city council at this time. State law prevents council from taking action or any matter not on the agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for follow-up. The public comment section is generally limited to a total of 15 minutes. However, that is subject to council's discretion and can be extended if the council wishes to do so. If needed, an opportunity for additional public comment may be also provided later in the agenda. City Clerk, can you please tally the total number of requests to speak on general public comment?
Certainly, Mayor Newsom. At this moment, I only have 2 requests to speak on general public comment in our council chambers. Not seeing anyone moving towards the dais, and I have 1 request to speak in our virtual environment. So that's a total of 3 requests to speak. So per council adopted rules and procedures, that'll be 3 minutes per speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
So we'll invite our first 2 speakers up. I call your name, if you could please line up to my right. Our first speaker will be Kevin Simpson, followed by Michael Sevilla.
Getting my money's worth tonight, folks. Thanks for having me again. It feels like it's been 3 minutes since I spoke to you last. I'm rising tonight to say that July 4th is almost upon us. And last year was one of the worst experiences I've ever had on a 4th of July. Our neighborhood was disrupted for a total of 8 hours by commercial grade fireworks display that went on till 5 in the morning. In the cold light of July 5th, there was a coating of burnt gunpowder and shell casings at the intersection of 2nd and Humboldt, and it ran all down 2nd Street from Amphlett to Fremont. And it went on and on and on. It was completely excessive. And I and my neighbors multiple times called in very specific information to PD, and we know that their hands are somewhat tied because if they don't see anybody shooting off the firework, they can't do a citation. We've got these very high fines now for this problem, but it's not helping the neighborhood. And in a time of high fire danger and in a time of just over the top displays, I'm wondering if we have talked about as a city, PD, council, everybody, finding a different solution this year. Rolling up black and white cars is not going to stop anybody. And I wonder if anybody got a fine last year. These $1,000 or $5,000 fines, or whatever the new laws allow, don't seem to be a deterrent. And the only thing that's going to deter somebody is somebody paying a high fine or sitting on those properties and intersections where this is a real big problem. I'm just begging you for some relief from this. Dogs go stray and wind up in the shelter and get euthanized. People are terrorized and out wondering if their houses are going to be caught fire. It was unbelievable last year. So I really hope that in the next month, we can come up with something a little more creative and see if we can tamp some of this down. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And our next speaker will be Michael Sevilla.
Good evening. Still no progress on ending the 14-day reservation window for the VIP membership program at San Mateo Municipal Golf Course. I read on May 22nd that the Daily Journal that the city of San Mateo is being sued by the owner of the Par 3 restaurant, claiming the staff of the San Mateo Municipal Golf Course neglected to maintain the facilities, which created a dangerous situation. Did the implementation and defense of the questionable 14-day reservation window for VIP membership cause the staff to neglect their duties to operate and maintain a municipal facility? It appears that way. The amount of money that the San Mateo Municipal Golf Course staff claim to be making from the VIP membership dues is minor compared with what is being lost due to the closed facilities. And Poplar Creek standing among other golf courses has diminished greatly. A week ago, I had a reservation on Saturday at 8:40 as a single. The VIP member and the group didn't show up or cancel their reservation, so I started as a single. So this problem continues. Please end the 14-day reservation window for the VIP membership program and find someone to properly maintain and operate the San Mateo Municipal Golf Course. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Newsom, that concludes general public comment.
Very good. We will close public comment and before we move on to the next item, I believe our city manager, Alex Jekian, has a request of the council to consider regarding the order of the remaining agenda items.
Yes, through the mayor. We have two agenda items remaining this evening. One is the fiscal year 25-26 budget. The other one is a transportation item. And so what I'd request from the council is to take the transportation item first and then the budget second, understanding we have individuals who have interest in the transportation item this evening in the audience.
Is that to mean that we don't have people interested in the budget?
I just see well, maybe there is both, I guess. But I see transportation cohort out there.
I'm okay with that.
Everybody else? Okay, so we are going to change the position and do new business, item 23, before item 22. New business, item 23, is the 2025 Transportation Program Annual Review Progress Update. We'll have a presentation by J.U., Engineering Manager. We'll receive the 2025 Transportation Program Annual Review, summarizing progress on the ongoing transportation plans and initiatives, key project updates, and performance metrics, including citywide mode share and safety data. Welcome, Jay.
All right. Good evening, City Council. My name is J.U., the Engineer Manager for Public Works, and tonight I'll be going over the annual transportation review. It is a City Council priority number 5, and this is the first year that we're doing this. Let's see. All right, we have a long agenda and a lot to talk about. Hopefully, we're trying to encapsulate the whole entire transportation network into this presentation. We got 40 plus slides, so we're going to go through this the best we can. We're going to start off and talk about the transportation network, and then we're going to jump into really 4 of our main programs: active transportation, vehicle congestion management, parking management program, safety program, and then lastly, end with challenges. I'm hoping by the end of this conversation, we will understand what transportation does, is doing, and where we're heading towards in the future. So let's just jump straight into it. So first, our transportation network. When we think about our transportation network, oftentimes we think about roadways, right? But really, we have traffic signals, train stations, ped bridges, vehicle bridges, sidewalks, bike lanes, parking garages, interchanges, and basically any type of device or facility that helps you get from point A to point B is included in our network, and it's quite vast. But how do we get here? Well, I think City Council is very familiar with the general plan. And ultimately, the general plan is a document that gives vision of how do we build out land use, housing, noise, as well as circulation and transportation, which is what this update is about. They identify goals, objectives, and policy. And over time, this is how it shapes the network as we currently see it. Now, for us, last year, we just adopted our new general plan. 2040, Strive San Mateo, 6 years of community outreach, 6 years. I just want to emphasize that right there. And there were about 15 main key issues that a lot of the surveyor responded to. And out of the 15, the top 3, 2 of the 3 are transportation related. So safe and accessible transit, traffic congestion, and of course, the first one's affordable housing. To the right, you would see a couple of buckets: active transportation, vehicle congestion management, parking management, and safety. And all the notes underneath it pertains to the policies to each individual program. Now, we'll go into those a little bit more in detail, but as you can see, there are a lot of policies in the new general plan that really dictates and will shape how our future transportation network will be. So where are we at? Well, at the left, you would see our current mode share. It's very vehicle-centric. About 85% of commuters take vehicle, and about 4% walk, about 5% bike, and about 6% take public transit. Where we're trying to get to is to the right. A little bit more balance, right? About vehicles, pedestrians, public transit, etc. We don't know the exact percentage, but we wanted a little bit more balance is what the policy is leaning towards. And then this is a graphic that our team developed. It is our transportation network at a slide. Now, we're not going to go through every single one, but 80 bridges, 7,000 plus streetlights, over 190 Samtrans bus stops, about 3 Caltrain stations, and 90 traffic signals. And we could go ahead and take a snapshot. I see you're doing that, Mayor Newsom. And we could go back to this and then talk about it a little bit more. But I want to go ahead and jump into our first major program, active transportation, right? And our goal is ultimately to enhance transportation by supporting walking, biking, and transit, basically anything but vehicle. And we have a lot of adopted plans that talk about this, maybe a little too much. Our bicycle master plan, our pedestrian master plan, our transit-oriented development pedestrian access plan, and of course, Strive San Mateo. And in Strive San Mateo, here are the specific policies of where we're heading towards. Right? We want sustainable transportation, complete streets. We want to prioritize pedestrian and bicycle mobility. We want to think about first and last mile connections and support our Caltrain and Samtrans network in order to make that work for public transit. And there are a lot of policies, and how does that fit into our current framework? Well, there's really 2 sides to it. There's a planning side, you see here at the left, that has all the documents and the vision and the concept of how this is going to play out. And then the infrastructure side, our Bike San Mateo program or pedestrian improvement, that is mostly implemented by our pavement management program. And we're going to talk about ultimately some of the progress in those programs. But first, here's another slide to go ahead and take a picture on. We don't have the time to talk about all the active transportation projects we currently have going on, but we have a lot. And you'll see a couple of symbols. One is represented by a treasury building. That ultimately means there's grant funding involved in the project. You would see at the bottom right 2 unique symbols. One is a book, which means it's part of an adopted plan. And then if you see 3 people sitting around a table, that ultimately means it's a city council priority. So the projects here are part of 3 adopted plans: the top half, the bicycle master plan, the PMP, as well as 2 city council priorities, number 39 and 40. Make up this list. And we're going to talk about a couple of this, but you could, come back to the slide a little bit later and we'll talk about the projects more in detail. So the first big program I want us to talk about, which is the city council priority number 40, to complete all high and medium high priority projects in the 2020 bicycle master plan. That consists of over 170 bicycle segment projects, $40+ million of projects identified, and 60+ centerline miles of bike infrastructure that needs to be improved or added into the system. So this is in the adopted plan. Now, I want to note, $40+ million, most of these projects are unfunded, right? We'll talk a little bit more about the funding process as well, but I definitely want to note that because it's been identified doesn't mean we have the means to deliver on the projects. I have a feeling this council is going to like this slide. So out of all the priorities, I want to go ahead and break up the individual priorities from high, medium, low, and low. And the number on top of each priority represents the project segments in each individual category, and it gets better. So out of every single priority, we've broken it down to, out of that priority, how many projects are actually class 2s, class 4s, or buffer bike lanes? So those are bike lanes in the roadway. And how many of them are bike boulevards or shared use path that ultimately does not take any roadway right-of-way, if you will. And at the very bottom, there is a percentage of projects that we see at this level, at the planning level, that do not require a lane reduction or removal parking. So we'll go through 1 or 2 of these priorities, high and the medium high, because those are city council priorities. But you can see at the very bottom, 48% of all the high priority projects do not require a lane reduction or any type of parking removal, and it goes to 63. Now, you'll notice a trend as we go lower in the priority scale. The number of projects that do not require a lane reduction or parking removal goes up. So 48 all the way to 88%, that ultimately coincides with the number of projects and where it ranks in its safety. So obviously, if you have more separation in the actual roadway, you would need some type of lane reduction or parking removal. But we can come back to the slide, but we thought this is a metric that we wanted to present to City Council. Next, I want to talk about average project delivery timeline. So how do we get from point A to point B? And there's quite a bit of steps. So the grant and funding phases takes about 6 months. If all goes well, we submit an application, the response to get a resolution approved, and ultimately some type of notice of whether we got the grant takes about 6 months. Then if we get the funding, project planning, and this is planning at the project level. This is not conceptually at a citywide plan level. This is taking a project and then understanding its operations. How would this impact the streets, the signals, and the mobility of users? That takes about 4 months. And the bulk of the work, about 12 months, goes into the design, which includes outreach. Now, mind you, some more complex project has outreach a little bit before, but on average, most of the outreach happens during this 12-month process in design, and then construction is about 4 months. Now, I want to kind of just put this note out there. This excludes some really large projects. Grade separation project, I think, is one that took about 18 years. We're working on another $20+ million. Those are multi-years, but the bulk of our projects are in that $500,000 to $3 million range. And this is about the 26-month window that we're looking at. A couple of key facts. About 100+ hour goes into the grant component of it, 140 hours in the project level planning, 700+ hours into the design, and about 500 hours into construction. On average, it takes over 1,400+ hours for a project to be delivered if all goes well. So you can see once we get the ball rolling, if you will, and once we get a hiccup in any particular area, a lot of resource and money has gone into it, and it's not as easy to just go ahead and jumpstart. Next, I want to end the Bike San Mateo program on progress. So City Council priority number 40 tells us that we want to complete high and medium high. That accounts for approximately 38.4 miles of infrastructure that we need to build. How are we doing? Well, we completed 6.4 miles of that, and that's about 16.6% of all high, medium, high projects. And 24% of those are high priority projects, and about 5.4 are medium high priority projects. So you can see we're really going towards or targeting the high priority projects that has the highest safety component. We're currently working on 4.9, almost 5 miles of projects as well. And that accounts for another 17.8% of the high priority projects and about 5.4% of the medium high priority projects. Now, with that said, oftentimes, so for our pavement management program, there are some economy of scale that we like to tackle. If there are areas that doesn't reduce the lane or take away parking, we also optimize and do some medium, low, and low projects. So we complete about 3.5%, and we're working on another 5% of those projects. Next, the pedestrian program. So we have two categories here. We have 300+ non-lighting projects as identified in the pedestrian master plan. That equates to about $15 million of non-lighting projects. So those are curb extensions, stop bars, advanced stop bars, high visibility crosswalks, and curb ramps. Then we have 60+ lighting projects that equate to over $200 million of lighting improvements identified. We've completed 31% of the non-lighting projects approximately, and about 24% of the lighting projects. Now, again, similar to the BMP, most of these projects are unfunded, as you can see. I mean, in the pedestrian master plan, when we're accounting for inflation, bringing it into 2025 numbers, that's over $210 million worth of project, with the bulk of that being lighting projects. Also want to highlight in 2024 that we constructed 81 curb ramps and over 13,000+ sidewalks in terms of square footage that we repaired. Next, a couple of projects I just want to give an update on. The first one's the Humboldt Bike Lane, as council's well aware. So in February, we got direction from City Council to move forward with Alternative 3, which is to explore a bike boulevard at Fremont and also pursue lighting upgrades as well. Now, if you recall, this is a 4-phase approach. We are now in the engagement and funding phase, and I want to go ahead and give a quick update of where we're at. So June 18th is going to be our first community meeting at the MLK Center, and then we're going to come back in late summer and then fall for 3 community meetings, and then we're hoping to bring this to SIC in winter 2025, and then hopefully to City Council in early 2026 to go ahead and get direction and where we're going, potentially funding a project. Next, the Complete Streets Plan. So this is a project that we started about a year ago, but we had to stop due to staff shortages. But ultimately, there are 2 primary key factors we're trying to get out of this. We're transforming our existing vehicle-centric transportation network to one that, as mentioned earlier, fits more modes and mobilities. And then we're here to consolidate our transportation plans. So our PMP, our Bicycle Master Plan, TODPAP, North Central Complete Streets Plan. We're trying to get it all in one place so it's easy to find. We're planning to start this back in fiscal year 25-26. I want to move into our second big program, our Vehicle Congestion Management Program. We call that VCM internally. And ultimately, there are also policies identified in our general plan that talks about this, whether it be TDM requirements, looking at roadway operations, or making sure that local transportation analysis is needed for development projects. And there are 3 main components that we're kind of dab into a little bit. Planning at the left, TDM, private development, how do we handle that? And we'll have slides specifically to talk about that. We have infrastructure projects mentioned in the middle, and then we'll talk about maintenance and operation. We have a lot of assets, a lot of devices, and behind the scenes, there's a 24-hour operation, 7 days a week in terms of O&M, and I feel like those are the unsung heroes to really make the network flow, if you will. So first, how do we develop responsibly? So the General Plan 2040 was adopted March 2024, housing element shortly after that. And what does this really equate to is an increase in development for the foreseeable future. I mean, it's been identified that 7,000 plus new homes will be created in about 8 years. But if we look at our records, and we got this from CDD, we already have close to 5,000. So over 4,900 housing units is in the pipeline. So whether there's a pre-app, we know applicants is about to submit, or we're reviewing the application, or is already in construction. So a lot is going on. We have 4 new measures that we're taking on the traffic side of the house to make sure that congestion and we're developing responsibly. The first one is we want to streamline the process for traffic impact analysis. So that's a report, ultimately an analysis for every development that comes to it. We want to understand to some level what type of operation impact it has into the streets. So currently right now, we hold a tight group of consultants in terms of the city holding the key of how we want this to play out. Moving forward, because of the influx of development, we are going to allow applicants to submit their traffic impact analysis. Now with that, we have clear local TIA modeling guidelines that we hold to ourselves too, but we're going to let the applicants go ahead and develop that. There's a couple of key benefits to that. The applicant knows their site really well, and they plan these projects years in advance. Allowing them to have a little bit of flexibility of how they want to lay out their site and how that affects transportation traffic really streamlines the process for us as well as them as well. So we're looking at that. Now, having so many applications come in, there would be an increased need for review. Now, we're going to go into our org chart a little bit later. Our group is small but mighty, but honestly, there's a lot of effort just in this one realm. So we are increasing professional traffic consultant support to make sure the bottleneck does not occur in the reviewing process. So when planning and design occurs, right, we still have to get rid of dirt. We still ultimately have to build structure. So what happens in construction? Well, we're developing a construction management plan, but realistically, it's a task force. A bunch of people talking to a bunch of developers when they're ready to construct within close proximity. And we want to make sure when they're closing lanes, when they're routing new people to different directions and sidewalks are closed, that they're coordinating and talking with each other and the public is well informed. So this is something that's being developed. And when more development starts to get into the building permit phase, we're going to have this task force, which is in the works. Next, I want to talk about the citywide TDM. So the primary goal of this is ultimately to reduce the number of vehicle trips and to encourage alternative transportation modes like transit, biking, walking, and carpooling. We started this effort and it's grant funded through MTC on a technical assistant grant about a year ago, but due to staffing shortages, we had to stop it. But ultimately, in this new fiscal year, we're planning to start it again. We're going to go back to the development community to get their input. We're going to have 3 study sessions approximately in winter of this year with City Council to get policy direction. And then hopefully in early 2026, we can see adoption. And then lastly, before we go into metrics, just the operational efforts that we're looking at. So starting on the left and going all the way to the right. What you're looking at the left is every signal light intersection has a cabinet, and we have what we call communication and devices that really talks to us and gets data back to really where we're sitting at the headquarters, if you will. And constantly, there are things that occur in our 90 traffic intersections or signalized intersections where it requires routine maintenance. So we have a program for that. What you're looking at the second column or picture is our video detection system. So VDS or video detection system are really our eyes at the intersections. We need to see what's going on in case we need to make adjustments. And what you're looking at there is a video from a traffic management center looking at an intersection of how the intersection's operating in terms of visually. And then the third picture represents signal timing. So this is how we allocate green time for a specific phase. Sometimes traffic patterns change and we need to adjust green time for that. And we can do it remotely in the traffic management center. And at the very right is the actual traffic management center where everything is funneled through. And we're still building on that, but what you're looking at is a picture of one of our associate engineers, Kenny, just monitoring really about 15 or 20 of those signals in real time. We also have a cooperation with our PD ultimately to give some perspective to increase safety with this network as well. And then to end this program, I want to talk about a metric. And this was a difficult one in terms of where it is, because there's a lot of vehicles and a lot of roadways. But there are 4 main roadways that I want to go ahead and give some travel times for. Hillsdale Boulevard, 3rd and 4th Avenue, 19th Avenue, Fashion Island, and Alameda's de las Pugas. The limits are listed below. So we're going to talk about the average travel time and average vehicle volume. Now, here's the kicker. Average travel time did not change much. If you look at it, they're approximately the same from 2019 to 2024. Now in 2025, we could come back and see if this is the case. But vehicle volume is where that I want to just point City Council's direction to. And it has gone down in all 4 of our major corridors. So from Hillsdale went from about 10,200 to about 8,100. And then for Alameda de las Pugas, it went from 7,400 to about 5,000. So this is a consistent trend that we've been using. We have some big data to really look at areas throughout our whole entire city, but we have been seeing vehicle volume go down. And in 2025, we'll go ahead and be able to report on how we're doing in this year, next year's update. But overall, you can take a snapshot of the metrics, but vehicle volumes are down as of 2024. Next, I want to talk about parking management program. So again, the general plan has a lot of policies that talks about it, about increasing shared parking, public parking, bike parking, and etc. But I want to talk about some initiatives, or first, some of the accomplishment that we had. So last year, we issued over 2,500 plus residential parking permits. Now, again, I just want to mention this is a free program. So every one of these permits now, we still issued physically with a sticker. And if they want a visitor tag, we hand those out as well. This year is an actual renewal year. So we're expecting to hit over 3,000 renewals this year, which is going to be another big effort for this free program. But downtown also has 8 city-owned parking facilities, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And we have over 3,500 on and off-street parking spaces just in the downtown in itself. And then another note of accomplishments in 2024, over 7,200 parking permits were issued for the downtown. So we have a monthly parking permit program for our parking garages. And a lot of these permits, depending if people renew or not, we have to maintain a database and issue these permits in order to keep the operations flowing. Future initiatives. So we have 4 big ones that I want to just touch on shortly. So with issuing a lot of permits comes with a lot of customer service requests. We're looking at a third party and an online platform to really streamline the 7,200 permits that we issue every single year. Digital residential parking permits, right? Again, this is the free RPPP program that we currently have. Because it's so physically intensive to issue all these permits, we're looking to streamline the process with a digital permitting process where we don't have to issue over 2,000 to 3,000 permits to every single permit holder every single year. So we're exploring that currently. In the downtown, I wouldn't say we have a lack of access for payment, but we're looking to explore it a little bit more. So we have coin, cash, credit card, mobile payment, but we're looking at other ways to go ahead and make it more accessible as well. And then lastly, improve wayfinding signage to reduce vehicle idling so they know where to park. We want to go ahead and maximize that as much as possible. So I want to end this program with another fun metric. So in the downtown, we have 6 parking garages shown there and 2 open lots at 5th and 4th. I want to provide a utilization for, okay, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I want to go ahead and provide the top 3 most utilized parking garages. And for 2 periods, lunch and dinner. So lunch is 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then dinner is 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I'm going to split it up on weekdays and weekends. So for the weekday, at lunchtime, the busiest parking garage is 2nd and ECR with 70% utilization, meaning about 30% of the spaces are available. If you go there, it goes to 69 and then 62. For the dinner crowd, Main Street is 90% utilized. So it's going to be difficult to find space there. Only about 10% is available, and then Central, and then down to 4th and Railroad. On the weekend, the tennis court parking garage is 76% utilized. That's the top one for lunch, and 66% for Central and 56% for Main Street. Now we get to dinner time on the weekends. San Mateo is busy. 90% for Central occupied and 90% for Main Street and 72% for 4th and Railroad. So I want to go ahead and put this out there. We have more data for this. We did a comprehensive downtown parking utilization study in 2024. So these are some of the highlights. And I want to go ahead and provide this metric for City Council. And then the last program before we talk about challenges is safety. Safety is paramount. And we have a lot of policies. Now, it only shows 3 here, but I want to mention every single policy that we mentioned earlier has aspect of safety to it, specifically in active transportation. But one that I want to note here is Vision Zero, which are striving for 0 fatalities in the future. Now, in terms of program, there's a lot. Bike San Mateo, our local roadway safety program, citywide speed limit program, safe routes to school, which is always a community favorite, our high voltage streetlight conversion program, and quick build mobility. And similar to the other programs, here's a snapshot of all the projects that are currently active. These are not in the pipeline. These are ones that we're working on, depending if it's planning, design, construction, or been completed. And you can see a lot of them are grant funded as well. So the first project I want to talk about is our local roadway safety program. So if you recall, in May of 2024, we adopted a plan that is data-driven that looks at hotspots and locations of where collisions are occurring, and we want to go ahead and fix it as soon as possible. So there's a list that's been developed called the top 10 priority locations, and it is data-driven that looks at severity, frequency, but specifically pedestrian bicycle incidents rank really high. So City Council gave us direction to focus on implementation. And since May of last year, so it's been about a year, 70% of the projects are currently in progress and funded. So we didn't waste any time. In about a year, we went ahead and applied for a bunch of grants. There are projects moving forward. Safety is paramount. And 70% of the top 10 locations are already in progress or funding. So we're working on those currently. Next, our citywide speed limit program. So there's 2 highlights I want to note. If you recall last year, we completed our first Slow for Students project, which included 23 schools, public and private, throughout the whole entire city, where we reduce speed limits. So if you're within anywhere from 500 to 1,000 feet from a school, you either get a lower speed limit of 15 or 25, depending. 39 corridors received reduced speeds as part of this project that was completed last year. Next, our citywide speed survey renewal. So the CBC requires cities to re-look at every segment of the streets and speed limits every 14 years. So here it is, 14 years. We got to relook at it. And we are starting the data preparation. We actually started this earlier in the year. We are selecting our consultant very soon, about to do our speed surveys, and hopefully to get it certified and completed by the end of this coming fiscal year. Next, our Safe Routes to School program. So this is one that is super community driven, right? We're in the schools, we're in the walk audits supported by PD, our Police Activities League, the Daily Journal, Hillsdale High, County of Safe Routes to School, all of it. And we had a really big project start actually last year, which is a really proactive plan, and it's called the Safe Routes Strategic Plan. And ultimately, what we want to do is have a work plan and a proactive document that talks about the values and the vision of the Safe Routes to School program, and really have specific funding or requests for funding allocated to this program so we know what we're doing year over year. As part of the strategic plan, we had over 15 community meetings and over 10 informant reviews that included our superintendent at our school district, different principals at different schools, our city manager, Alex, as well as, I think, potentially some city council members. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Lisa. So we're doing a lot, and hopefully we're having this plan completed in summer of this year, and it'll be a really big step in our program to have a proactive program moving forward. So the metrics for safety, 2024, there's going to be a lot that we're going to go over. First is the number of total collisions. 224 total collisions occurred in 2024. About 14% of those are bicyclists, 70% are pedestrians, and 69% are predominantly vehicles. In terms of the collision types, 29% are broadside, 14% are side swipes, 19% are rear ends, and 5% are head-on, and 6% are hitting an object. And then if we want to break down some of the demographics, the severity type, less than 1% are fatal in 2024, 4% severe, and then 95% are really minor, if you will, in terms of severity types. And the age splits, for 14 and under is what we classify as school-age kids. That accounts for about 7%. About 80% is in this gigantic range of 15 to 64-year-olds. And then senior citizens of 65 plus accounts for 14% of that. So next year, we're going to come back and be able to compare how we're doing. But we do want to leave you qualitatively with another slide of how do we actually compare. And this is qualitative because the data set is different, but the Office of Traffic Safety, which is a California state transportation agency, they have a goal to prevent serious injuries and deaths caused by motor vehicle crashes. And they compare collision data. They consolidate all of this. They take it from every single city in this state. And it takes about 2 to 3 years for them to really filter through and look at all the data. So every agency is required to report to SWITers, and they pull the data from SWITers, and they have a team to analyze this. And they compare every city to their similar size. So San Mateo is in category B, which means 100,000 to 250,000 in population. And there are 61 cities that classify in category B. Some of our neighbors like Fremont, Berkeley, Hayward, Sunnyvale, Concord, Vallejo, Antioch is considered in category B. So 2022 is the latest data we got. So how did San Mateo fare? Well, we were ranked the lowest out of 61 cities for the total number of fatal injury collisions at 98. So as reported by the California State Transportation Agency, Office of Traffic Safety, that does this publication every 2 to 3 years, out of our category in terms of our population size, we are the lowest in terms of fatal and injury collisions. Now, no one wants to say you're ranked number 1 in fatal injury collisions, but it's ranked the lower the better. So let's look at a 5-year trend of how the published data from the Office of Traffic Safety ranks San Mateo. Well, starting with 2018, we were 37 out of 59. And then in 2019, we were 46 out of 59. And then in 2020, we were 49 out of 61. And then we were 59 out of 60, and then 61 out of 61. We are dead last. And that's a good thing. The lower, the better at this point. Now, I want to point this out because qualitatively, 2022 is a different subset of data from the one that we're pulling from 2024. We don't have that data set yet, but I think it's important to put collisions into context of how similar sized cities are doing. So then we're going to move into challenges after we understand the program a little bit more. Funding. 70% of our transportation projects are grant funded. So you've seen those projects, the transportation projects, 70% of the active ones that we're working on are grant funded. So that means 30% of them are locally funded, such as traffic impact fees that we collect from developers if they have an impact on our network, Measure A, Measure S, general fund, etc. But out of all the grant funding, 85% are federal funding, 9% are state, and about 5% is county. Now, there are separate benefits. I see Adam over there just laughing a little bit, but 85% are federal funds. Now, there's a method to this, right? Federal funds tend to be higher in dollar value. They have more funds, but their applications are very extensive. The reporting requirements are very extensive, but we have a good amount of big projects going on, and we've been fortunate to get federal funding a lot. State funding tends to have lower funding than federal, but more than county. The reporting structure still goes to Caltrans, their LAPM system, and it's very intensive. And then lastly, county, we have 5% of those. These are very flexible funds, easy for us to apply. The reporting is easy. It's less resource and overhead. But again, they don't offer a lot of funding, if you will. So with this makeup of funding, it presents to be a challenge because there's unpredictability depending on the politics and where things lie. Historically, in 2016 and 2024, we had our federal funding either postponed or reviewed, and we have to stop the process in the middle of that. So with this is unpredictability, and it lacks some consistency in terms of how we're funding. Next, limited right-of-way. So San Mateo is the #1 most populated city in our county. That is just a fact, whether it's 2023 or whatever data we're looking at. We looked at it from 2020. We have been the most populous. We are the 4th most dense as well, with over 8,300 residents per square mile. But if you look at cities that are above 40,000 in population, we are the #2 most dense. San Mateo is mostly built out. Future developments will be infill. And as noted earlier, 46% of all high, medium, high priority projects require either a lane reduction or parking removal. And if you look at the distribution at the right, we have about 200 center lane miles for vehicles and about 23 for bike lanes. So if we are to move towards where the general plan and our policies are saying we want a more balanced network, we have limited right-of-way and we cannot widen roads anymore. We have to make tough decisions in regards to how do we prioritize this if we ultimately want to build out our network. So that's another challenge. And then lastly, staffing. So for us currently, in the transportation team, there's one engineering manager currently that oversees traffic engineering that has 5 FTEs, a senior, 3 associates, and a technician, and a transportation planning group that has about 2.5 FTEs. So in the future, it will be a senior transportation planner, an associate transportation, and a part-time safe routes to school coordinator. Everything in red represents a vacant position currently. In terms of the land development side, in the future, now we will come back to City Council, discuss this, but if all goes well, there might be an additional engineer manager because we have heard the concerns of the public and want to have a larger focus in transportation as well as land development, that there will be potentially a new engineering manager that oversees private development right-of-way services that oversees 7 FTEs. For maintenance and operations, so every single asset that we talked about, 200 miles of roadway, 90 intersections, every device, there is one maintenance manager that oversees 6 O&M traffic maintenance workers. a fun fact, there are also 35 other FTEs that report to this one maintenance manager. So if you look at the staffing in totality of where we're at and how large San Mateo is, the most populous city in San Mateo County and top 4 most dense, we have a lot of infrastructure that we have to maintain and design for to get to where we want to go. And staffing, we know, is one that will continue to be a challenge, and we work the best we can. Where 70% of our funding are grants, so we're making it work, but comes unpredictability and consistency, and that's the last challenge. So my name is JU Engineer Manager. Looking forward to the discussion, but thank you for your time.
Just to the mayor, I saw a lot of you taking pictures with your phones. The actual slide deck, it will be connected to the agenda on the city's website, so it is readily available to the public for anyone to be able to retain.
Thank you. Okay. Let's go ahead and open public comment.
Certainly, Mayor Newsom. If you wish to speak on this item, you're participating in person and you've not provided me with a request to speak slip, please do so at this time. If you're in our virtual environment, please raise your hand. We will be announcing the last speaker, so please do so now. Mayor Newsom, we have a total of 8 requests to speak on this item, so that per council adopted rules and procedures would be 3 minutes per speaker.
All in person or?
We have 4 in person and 4 virtual.
Great, thank you.
So we'll set the timer at 3 minutes per speaker. If I call your name, if you could please line up to my right, that'll help us make sure we get through all of the requests to speak expeditiously. Our first 3 speakers will be Kevin Simpson, followed by Sean Shochet and Mike Swire.
Hello again. So thanks for that very detailed presentation. I wish we had had a chance to see this before we came tonight. Something this complex, in my opinion, should be in the packet and available to not just the council, but residents before the meeting. There's a lot of numbers to digest there and a lot of information to go through. So in my opinion, public comment is probably a little underbaked at this point. With that being said, it's great that we have the lowest number of traffic deaths in the last year of any city. I'm not celebrating that. There's 3 of our citizens who were killed, 3 of our residents who've been killed in traffic collisions in the last few months. And the rate that it's happening now is alarming to the point where I consider it an emergency. And I don't understand why it just feels like business as usual in this city when we have people getting killed on our streets. We have unfunded safety projects, and we're talking about things like grinding down parts of the sidewalk as a safety improvement, $200 million worth of lighting. We've got bigger problems. We have cars running over people. We have moms riding their bikes on Humboldt Street with their daughters in the backs of their bikes being harassed by vehicles. This is going on right now. And I'd like us to take a little bit more aggressive stance on safety. I don't think we're anywhere near where we need to be. We don't have the ability to issue speeding tickets in this city. And I see we're going to get that maybe next year. I just don't think the level of urgency in this city about transportation and safety of pedestrians and all of the lofty goals are in sync with what we're actually doing. I think we got a lot of trees and not really a good view of the forest. So I really hope that as we consider this report and as we start making plans, we back up a little and look at the totality and look at the reality. It's crazy to me that in so many different slides in that presentation, you talked about multimodal and getting people on bikes and how far behind we are. And we're considering spending $2 million to rip out the most significant bike infrastructure project we've ever done. I just don't understand what you guys are doing. You're my friends. I've worked with you. I've spent a lot of time with you. And I've tried to be, you know, a team player for this city, but I'm just baffled by what we're doing here. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Sean, followed by Mike Swire and Michael Reagan.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for that presentation. That was as thorough as it gets. I'm Sean. I'm a teacher and a resident in San Mateo. I'm here to talk about urgent safety concerns on Alameda de las Pulgas between 24th and 26th Avenues. There's no safe crossing from 20th to 26th. It's a half-mile stretch, yet people cross near 24th every single day. Kids, adults, Sierra High School teams all the times are running their cross-country teams back and forth. It's the only practical option, but it's dangerous. Cars speed through, and I've seen near misses firsthand. There would be a lot more if we think about that percentage on that presentation of how many were so close to getting hit. I strongly urge the city to install an elevated crosswalk at 24th to slow traffic and give pedestrians a safe way to cross. Traffic needs calming here. It's residential. The northbound side approaches Curie School, and the southbound road widens while the bike lane disappears. It actually disappears mid-street, which is a really awful design. I was riding recently and almost hit by a car right at that moment because cars think the bike lanes disappears means there's no bike right away for any bike to be on the street. Please make Alameda, especially between 24th and 26th, the next safety improvement project. I think Alameda needs to be slowed down. I think it's imperative that we consider that a priority. The presentation just now said that we're going from I wrote this down. It was 7,400 to 5,000. That's 1/3 reduction in cars. But the speed that they're going is 10 times faster. They're whizzing by, and it's dangerous. And our community, and especially our kids, deserve a safer street. I'll finally add that I work at the Nueva School, and I am really excited about Delaware Improvement Plan. Getting bike lanes on Delaware is a huge necessity, and having them buffered means the whole deal. My daughter on Alameda will hopefully bike ride to school. She could bike ride 2 blocks to Meadow Heights. She could bike ride many blocks to Abbott School, middle school. She could bike ride even, or actually a little closer to Hillsdale. But the whole time she is going to commute by bike, but she won't do it currently on Alameda's conditions. It'll never happen. And I wonder how many other kids are like that in the next 13 years of her life that could be impacted by the changes you can make. And I hope you do.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Mike Swire, followed by Michael Reagan.
Good evening, members of council, Mayor Newsom. Thanks so much for listening. First, I want to thank Alex for moving this up. I appreciate everybody being able to speak earlier. Second of all, I want to thank Jay. That's a great presentation. You're very good at this. I rise tonight once again to ask the council to focus its time and efforts on making the streets safer. I've said it before. I'm kind of tired of saying it. I share Kevin's outrage, and I don't know. We've had. For the Humboldt bike lanes, we had 60 people show up. 45 of them supported the bike lanes, and you guys went in the opposite direction. On Delaware, we had probably 70 or 80% of people speak in favor of the bike lanes, and yet the theme of the night was it's too controversial, and we need to consider projects potentially that are less controversial. Thus, I beg the council to keep going, at least in the direction we are, or that Jay alluded to, where we're prioritizing the projects which will have the most impact. What's going to save the most lives? What's going to get people out of their cars and reduce congestion? Not what the easiest projects are, because if the projects are easy, that means they're probably not going to have much of an impact. One other thing I saw with the great data tonight was 2 things. One, there was a lot of data on how many cars are actually on the road and congestion. And 2, how utilized the parking garages were. And both showed that 1, traffic isn't nearly as bad as it used to be, and yet people are still complaining about traffic. And two, parking is not nearly utilized. He only showed the most congested of the 7 or 8 garages. Kiku Crossing is totally basically unused. So we have a lot of people, I know they come to you and they complain about congestion, they complain about parking, but the data actually doesn't bear that out as bad as it is. I hate getting stuck in traffic. I hate having to walk for parking, but we need a scientific based approach to this. And I think this is a good start. I think the congestion metrics or the metrics in general are very good. Again, one fatality is too many. I'd like to understand more about the status of Peninsula, which was the #2 project on the Bike Master Plan, and that was canceled. And I am not aware of any program moving in that direction. Humboldt, of course, is the #4 on the Bike Master Plan, and seems like that is going backwards. There was a statistic that said that we have 60 miles of bike facilities. I don't think that's accurate because a lot of those are sharrows or bike boulevards that absolutely do nothing. Finally, I think that we need to address equity. Nobody's really talking about the fact that 20% of some neighborhoods don't have cars. Teens don't have cars. A lot of elderly people don't have cars. And then finally, I want to make sure that we acknowledge that the Bay Meadows community is looking for some improvements to the parking situation there. The requirements of the specific plan included time restrictions on the streets, and thus we're looking for a pause in enforcement until the required visitor parking becomes available.
Thank you.
I'm out of time. Thank you.
Our final speaker in chambers will be Michael Reagan, and our final speaker in our virtual environment will be Allison McQueen.
Evening. I guess I want to start off with talking about the Hillsdale traffic light. I don't know if that was really talked about, but I was head of that traffic advisory committee back in 2017 and 2018, and that was our top priority. And we're still looking to get that traffic light put in comparison to the Baywood Alameda Boulevard. They have 4 lights along that street. We have none, and we have a lot more traffic than they do. Considering also the fact that Hillsdale Mall has put an application in, and that the amount of traffic and parking that will come along with that project is just mind-boggling. But that's a topic for another day. The other thing is, I was told that there was some grant money allocated for the Hillsdale 31st Avenue that I have not heard anything about. We have no idea what they're proposing, but we would like to have some input in that in our neighborhood. The other area is the new project that's been submitted on 20th Avenue. A lot of our residents are concerned about parking, especially parking in the neighborhoods surrounding that, and the traffic also. Bike San Mateo, I saw the report on that. I was on the Bicycle Citizens Committee, and I thought that we did a pretty good job. But looking at what we're going through now, biking in San Mateo, and I'm a bike rider. I've been riding all my life. I have bikes now. It's a mindset. It's a collaboration between the people that drive cars and the people that are on bikes. And unfortunately, we just do not have that consideration from the people that drive cars. They don't consider bicyclists very important, and they don't take any consideration for their safety, as been noted many times. So I'm not sure how we're going to work this out. But I think spending 1,400 hours that the public works has to put into it, I think we really need to have a discussion about how we're going to proceed with the bicycle, implementing that, because I really feel as if it's something that we have, a lot of work to do in order to make it work in our city. And I think it's important that it does, but I'm not too encouraged with traffic the way it's been going lately. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Moving to our virtual environment, where our first speaker will be Max Mottner. Max, please unmute your mic.
Hi there. I think I'm muted. Yep.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to speak to specifically around operational efforts and some of the ways that the city can help address the structural deficit that we've got. Well, I'm, impressed by some of the electronics and high tech for signalized intersection management. I think there's a lot of lower recurring cost traffic managed solutions we can pursue. The city's got about 100 traffic lights, which is one per 1,000 residents. And that demonstrates just how expensive that infrastructure is. And so I'd like to see, the city explore a lot cheaper permanent physical traffic calming measures. Sean earlier mentioned, elevated crosswalks on Alameda. Speed bumps are another option, which I know council members are aware of how difficult it is for residents to advocate for them and get them installed. But these are an order of magnitude or 2 or 3 cheaper than the higher tech electricity dependent infrastructure, which gets knocked out of service when there's a rainstorm or electrical outage. So they're resilient to power outages. And I think there's cheaper street infrastructure, traffic calming measures that the city can pursue to accomplish safety goals. The other budget kind of topic, I will echo Mike's comments about parking garage utilization downtown. While it's great that, there's over 50% utilization lunch and dinner at some of the parking garages, we're not highlighting the low utilization parking garages. And I think the city's got a huge liability in oversupply of public parking garages. They're actually private parking lots I can name and share that are charging higher rates than the city is. And I think that's a reflection of the city underpricing its real estate and not having a sustainable approach to funding our public parking garages, which are not as utilized as the top ones. Let's just put it that way. So wanted to just hit on lower cost operational infrastructure projects and also parking management and being a little bit more mindful of failing to underprice our parking assets, which are going to be extremely expensive in the decades to come. So thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Elaine Salinger. Elaine, please unmute your mic.
Hi, thank you so much for letting me speak. I want to thank you very much for that excellent presentation. I thought that was fantastic. So I have served on the San Mateo County Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Council for the last 8 years. I was chair for 2 years, and I actually stopped being chair because it was so gut-wrenching, heartbreaking to be contacted by people who were not killed, but who simply had near misses that were terrifying. Situations where the driver either didn't see the cyclist or just didn't care about them. And while most drivers are very considerate of cyclists, it just takes 1 in 100 to absolutely terrify someone, and to the point where they never want to get back on a bike again. I do want to remind you that in 2023, the San Mateo County had a grand jury report that said that the number of cyclists in our county has not increased in over 20 years. And the reason for this is because cyclists do not feel safe. And I just, so there's no near miss data that is collected. The SWITRS information is serious accidents and fatalities only. That information is submitted by CHP, and I am aware of many accidents where the data is never entered. So it's very possible that the data you were using to illustrate how safe it is in San Mateo could possibly not be accurate. So I just want to mention that. And I think we all know, anyone who is on a bike, who's ever been on a bike on the street, knows that the only way to really make yourself feel safe on the road is with a protected bike lane. That sharing the road is just not safe. We know it. Everyone who cycles has very frequent near misses. And So I just really want to make a case that we need protected bike lanes. And I know that they're more expensive. I know that this can remove parking spot spaces, but this is what we need. If you really believe in increasing and promoting active transportation, we need protected bike lanes. And I want to beg you to not remove the bike lanes in North Central along Humboldt and Poplar Avenue near San Mateo High School. This is a step in the wrong direction. It's going to be expensive to remove it. It is not a good use of taxpayer money. And please do not do this. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Anna Lieb. Anna, please go ahead and unmute your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That was a fantastically well thought out and interesting presentation. So thank you very much. I wanted to echo the emphasis on safety for pedestrian cyclists that the folks who spoke before me have so eloquently and with a great deal of research pointed out. I think it's really important to make our city safer and more accessible. It's important for current and for future residents. I thought that the right of way point that was made is a really excellent way to bring it home. We really do have limited space on our roads and no way to make them wider, and so we have to prioritize. And I think I know that the Humboldt Street bike lanes have been a very contentious issue in my neighborhood. I'm a resident of North Central, and I really do have empathy for the folks who are struggling with parking or feeling frustrated. But at the same time, I think I'm really begging the city to have some vision and leadership on this issue, doubling down on more parking, removing safe routes for people to bike or scooter or be out of their cars is not a way to move forward. And I think we need to have a creative way to think about addressing the legitimate concerns of our neighbors who are saying that disabled people and elderly people can't park near their houses, or that people coming home late at night don't feel safe, but at the same time not saying that cyclists don't exist or don't matter or should not feel safe. Having more people on bikes or on scooters or on foot and in transit is the best way for the city to grow and become accessible and safe and vibrant going forward. And as someone who is on the streets on my bike by myself or with my family and including my young children, I'm just sort of echoing the cry to beg for to safety first. And people like me are not going to stay on the streets if they don't feel safe. And I think San Mateo will be a worse place for that. I wanted to call out one other part of the city that hasn't been mentioned. San Mateo Drive between Tilton and Poplar has several crosswalks that, in my opinion, are not very safe. I think we should consider removing them if we're not willing to make traffic calmer there, because it basically requires pedestrians to make eye contact with vehicles going at 30 miles an hour and hope that they stop. There are multiple churches and schools and daycares along that street. My daughter's preschool is near there, and I would love to see those intersections be safer for all of the people who might be getting to school or church nearby. Anyway, thank you very much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Andrea Stewart. Andrea, please unmute your mic.
Hi, I live in Bay Meadows in San Mateo. I'm a mom of two kids. They're 3.5 and 4. So this is later than I usually stay up, but this matters a lot to me because I am one of those moms who ride around with their kids on the back of the bicycle. We have one car, and sometimes this is the best way to get them places, and they really enjoy it. But there have been times where cars come too close, and it's really scared them. I do think that protective bike lanes are the best way to go. I am scared of getting hit with my kids on the back of the bicycle. People are not careful. They do not check where they're going a lot of the times. And frankly, a protected bike lane is the only way to prevent that. I've been biking for a very, very long time. I have been hit before and I've been taken away in an ambulance, but I do still think that it is a very good way to get around. And I wish that San Mateo was a little bit better for that. So living in Bay Meadows, which is supposed to encourage residents to use alternate transportation, it's a really great place. I can ride my bike, I can walk around Bay Meadows, but frankly, it's a little bit like an island. As soon as you get out of there, you've got El Camino on one side, which even just crossing as a pedestrian feels a little unsafe. And I can't take my kids over to Foster City because I cannot get over Hillsdale. There's just no way to get safely over that freeway that's anywhere close by. So that's just, I'm very tired, so I'm going to go to sleep. But I just really, really wanted to point out that if we want to make this place safe for bicycles, then we have to deprioritize cars a little bit more.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Allison McQueen. Allison, please unmute your mic.
Hello. As part of the discussion about the 92-101 Direct Connector project on May 5th, Mayor Newsom spoke of congestion on the 92 at school drop-off and pickup times, and that this could be a reason to expand the 92, which would cost many, many millions of dollars. However, there's a different reality that we can pursue in San Mateo. How do I know this? The answer is just 20 minutes south of us. I was at Palo Alto and Gunn high schools over the past few weeks for track meets, right at afternoon dismissal time. Guess what I saw? I sat in my car in the parking lot and watched a literal parade of bikes leaving the school. There were hundreds of students leaving school on bikes. Multiple bike racks, 50 yards long. That's half a football field. I saw only a few cars leaving school. Go there next school year and see for yourself. Contrast that with what we see at our high schools in San Mateo. Some students take the bus, walk, or bike, but by and large, students transit to school by car, snarling up traffic like Mayor Newsom has observed. It's chaos. What do Pally and Gunn have that we don't have? They both have well-marked bike lanes that lead in multiple directions directly from school. In contrast, high schools in San Mateo have 0 direct bike lanes that lead to school. Pally and Gunn show us that if you build it, they will come. Bikes are much cheaper than cars, are great exercise, and reduce traffic congestion and greenhouse gases for a small fraction of the price of an expanded highway. San Mateo City Council, like others tonight, I plead with you, do not accept traffic as a problem that requires more and bigger roads. We can imagine a better future for how our students get to and from school, but we need your support to implement and sustain the 2020 Bike Master Plan and prioritize funding in the city budget. And we invest in more roads instead, we'll waste millions of dollars in taxpayer funds with 0 track record of reducing congestion and put student and teacher cyclist lives at risk. My husband has biked to Aragon High School where he teaches for the last 10 years. There's no safe bike route, as Sean talked about on Alameda. He's tried every option. He often jokes morbidly that he's risking his life to get to work. It's not far from the truth. Dylan Taylor, a fellow educator, was tragically killed last month biking to the school he teaches at in Menlo Park. The tragic death of Dylan puts you, our city leaders, on notice, once again, that as a city, San Mateo must invest in safe routes to schools. If we build it, they will come.
Thank you, Mayor Newsom. That concludes public comment.
Great, thank you. We will close public comment and open it up. Actually, do we need a break? Let's take a 10-minute recess, and then we will come back for council comment questions. Thank you. And we're back. We are going to be talking about item 23. We're going to open it up to council comments and questions and feedback. Does anyone want to go first? Deputy Mayor, would you like to go first? You've been volunteering. Sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you through the mayor. Jay, thank you for this presentation. There is a lot to chew on, and I won't attempt to chew on all of it right now, but I was curious about the mode share statistics you shared, and how is the city measuring mode share?
That is a really good question. So we did not have internal data for MoShare, but luckily there is MoShare that's gathered by the American Community Survey that's being done. A lot of our data is being pulled from that survey, and it's done in consensus with census.gov. So that's where we're pulling the data from.
Is that how we are currently planning to continue to track mode share in future annual reviews at this time?
Yeah, I think that's the most effective way with our limited resources. The mode share really looks at all the commuters in San Mateo, and there's already a platform for that. So we wanted to utilize that and have the highest hit rate.
Thank you. I also appreciated some of the data you shared related to parking utilization. And I was just curious about whether we have data on how our relatively new parking wayfinding downtown has changed parking utilization, if at all. And can you remind me whether we're reviewing pricing of parking as well?
So we don't have comparison data. I think, Councilmember Lorraine, you're talking about when we installed the downtown parking technology project with dynamic signage. We don't have pre-installation data, but we can look at post-installation. But I think it's going to be very difficult to compare because we don't have a baseline prior to entering into that project. And what was the second question again, if you can remind me?
And can you remind, are we reviewing parking pricing and rates?
We are reviewing it, but right now we don't have anything to bring forward to City Council. I think parking goes up rare, I want to say, in our fee schedule, and it's something that we have to talk a little bit more internally before we bring it to City Council. But if that's something yourself or council want to look at, I think that's direction you can provide for staff to bring some analysis forward.
Yeah, I would humbly submit. I think that's useful information.
That's part of our financial sustainability plan with the fees that we're looking at for adjusting. So that is something we're looking at.
Excellent. Thank you. And I realize that Kiku Crossings Garage is not exactly a year old, I don't think, or it's around there. But do we have any, did you have any figures on its utilization?
I do, but I don't remember it right now. As part of the 2024, we do have utilization data. But one thing to note is when we did this last year, the occupancy rate was low in terms of the housing units that were in there. So I wouldn't say that data is representative of what we're looking at now.
Yep, that's fair. I appreciate that. I saw some positive news about our Safe Routes to School strategic plan being near completion. But then I also happened to see that we have a vacancy in sort of a coordinator position for Safe Routes to Schools. And are we actively recruiting for that position?
I want to say the recruitment is in the pipeline and we're looking into it right now, but we are going through some reorg that we're looking into. But the recruitment is, I don't think it's published at the moment, but I want to say it's not paused as well.
Thank you. And I did have a question about the collision data and our ranking as a city. Just just confirming whether this rank is are we measured by the number of incidents as in comparison contrast to these other Class B cities? Or is there some other are rates involved as well? Or is it the hard number?
It is the total number in terms of the lowest. So ours is at 98. I didn't look at the other comparable cities, but ours is at 98 in terms of total fatal and injured collisions as of 2022.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to thank you for gathering this data and putting it into a report, trying to get our collective arms around all that has to do with transportation in our city is a big effort. But I do think it's worthwhile, and what gets measured gets managed. And so, I think it's just important to make sure that we're keeping an eye on a lot of these key metrics, and that council and city leaders and members of the public take this opportunity to watch the city's progress from year to year. And I think that was part of the idea behind my suggesting this as a blue sky item. And frankly, a lot of my blue sky items related to transportation. We need to make sure that we're continuing to chart out how we can where we want to be in the future, and we know that we won't necessarily be able to get there from one fell swoop or giant leap. It's going to take incremental progress over years. But I do believe that if we continue to pay attention to it, we can see opportunities that will allow us to make important progress. I saw some good news, but I do just want to mention I feel like I saw some sobering figures as well. The mode share numbers are not where we would want them to be, of course, and the funding numbers, particularly with the federal number in there, was a little tough to see. But I know that the city is working on diversifying its grant opportunities, and the challenges I appreciate you bringing forth as well. Staffing, of course, extremely important. And I guess I think I know our city has been through a tough patch, first with a pandemic. And then I think, having a few folks leave the organization, us not currently at full strength when it comes to transportation staffing presents challenges, and as we heard, resulted in the delay of a number of plans that are themselves meant to be kind of steps forward toward things like Vision Zero and other progress. So we're feeling it, but we still have the opportunity to be the city we want to be in the future. So looking forward to chewing on this and the next year's review and getting a sense of what's changing and how we can plot forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I've been watching city council meetings for 3+ years now. I think that was one of the best presentations I've ever seen. So, and the way you presented it was excellent. I'm very data driven, and this was the first time I've really seen a lot of comprehensive data around transportation. And I think I echo the sentiment of the community that everybody's really excited about the figures and what was shown. So please continue to do that and keep up the great work. So I'm going to keep my comments. I'll try to keep them brief. So in general, very supportive of all, the projects that the city's putting forward and the work that's being done. I'm really excited to see the TDM program. I'm really excited about speed surveys. I think I share some of Deputy Mayor Lorraine's comments around wayfinding, how we can improve that. I'm happy about the progress we're making. I think my one comment, and I'm going to be honest, I don't know how we solve for this, but is the balance between safety versus adoption. So when I think about, the bike lane infrastructure and the comments that we typically hear across residents in San Mateo, it's not so much about, are we prioritizing safety over low-hanging fruit or easy projects first? It's more about, there seems to be a disconnect where we start these projects, and I know we have a ton of information online, ton of resources, and yet somehow the public still isn't aware that these projects are happening right, in front of their homes sometimes. And I think that's where the frustration is. And so it's, how do we bridge that gap? And you showed a slide where you talked about kind of the timeline of projects. And I was thinking about it. And I don't know, but it's like, when you're going for a grant is maybe when we start the outreach phase. And I understand with grants, there's a lot of nuance, things change, but getting in earlier and often with the communication, and again, that costs money too, and staff time. So I'm very aware of the 1,400 hours now. But I think there seems to be a gap between the community getting behind some of these projects and the adoption or wanting to adopt. And I know that takes time, but that's where, for me, I think if we had a better balance there, like I'll bring up Norfolk because I think it's a great example where you can park your car and you can bike and you can walk. That's how you get people invested in bike infrastructure, because they see success. And then if you can pull up slide 12, just on this topic, I thought it was pretty interesting because of all the projects underway, I think only one is a class 4 and one is a class 2. And it makes me wonder about the rest of them and if there's a way where we can, do more or find added investment.
This slide?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, looking at like some of the planning and the design, I heard a lot of comments about if it's not class 4, people are more fearful or less confident. So I think it's kind of looking at these projects and saying, well, how can we really re-up and really invest? Because I think once the infrastructure is in, like what's happening on 3rd and Norfolk, where we're putting that class 4 and people will see the change, then they're more invested in it. Again, I don't know how you solve that, Jay. Not an easy thing, but I think it's finding that balance. I don't want to beat a dead horse, so I'll stop talking about that. In general, I really appreciate all the data. Really appreciated, that, we're going after federal, state, county funding. Just on the flip side for the council, 85% federal funding. I do think we need to push as many projects forward as we can right now, because we don't know what the long-term kind of recourse and where the government is going in terms of funding. And so there's a potential long-term where, we won't be able to fund these projects. We are already in a large deficit. And so that's going to continue to be an issue as well. So, to add more to your plate, moving faster too, I guess, would be my other comment. That's it for me. I just want to say thank you again and great job.
Ditto. I think it's just the fact that people are saying the comment was made, I wish we'd had this earlier so we could digest it. That's a compliment, right? That is something worthy of doing it. So thank you, Kevin. I one of my questions, just to jump in somewhere, is why do we think the car volume is so much less between 2019 and was it 2022 or 2024?
We don't know for sure, but I think there are policies in place that really lends toward that. And it also depends on corridor too. I think on Hillsdale, 19th Avenue, Fashion Island, and 3rd and 4th, those are predominantly kind of commuter arterials for us. And honestly, having a policy that's maybe a little more work from home, we've seen it at least from MTC's level, where they do want cities to kind of promote that a little bit more to alleviate some of the congestion in the major regional network. I want to say that spills into our local network as well. I think Alameda is a little interesting because we chose the AM peak. All the other corridors are the PM peaks that ultimately we chose the corridor. And when we looked at the data behind the scenes, whichever one is most congested, either AM or PM, we decided to present that. Alameda is in the AM because there are multiple schools in that area that has pickup and drop off. But one thing that we have done recently is we have looked at the bell schedule and worked with the schools to see if we could change that a little bit to minimize the impacts in the corridor. Don't know for sure, but I think at least for the 3 other corridors, I think a lot of it has to be some of the work from home policy and the regional policies to lower the vehicle volumes.
And the fact that our OTS ranking got lower and lower, i.e. better and better, do you think that's also related to the fact that there's more work from home, or?
I don't know for sure. And that's something that I think we could jot down and dig a little deeper to try to understand it.
Just over time to really because if there's something that we can do to continue to push it down or do that, it's fantastic. And then going forward, if there's more of a go back to the office now push, what happened? Are we going to see the trend going up? So just something to keep in mind. And totally underlining what everybody else has said about we need improved wayfinding. We need it. So it was on me. We want to do it. Do you have a timeline for when you want to do it?
I don't have a timeline right now, but I can tell you our team is working behind the scenes on developing a plan. And there is a lot of signage, there's design. I think we're focusing on the downtown currently, but no schedule, but we are putting resources into it right now.
That will be helpful. So jumping around a bit, the North Central Complete Streets Plan is sort of there and it stopped, and then the Complete Streets Plan itself is a little bit on hiatus. So given all the things that have changed in North Central, what's the thinking now about what we do with that, and how do we merge these plans, and how do we address the basic underlying safety issues that we keep hearing over and over again, particularly in that part of town?
That one's challenging because there's been a good amount of movement since the plan has started. Peninsula Interchange project is one that is in the community that is ultimately not moving forward for various reasons. There is the Train Horn Quiet Zone effort that we're looking at into potentially closing some streets. And then obviously the Humboldt bike lanes, right? In terms of the alternatives of how we move forward, all kind of mix into the North Central Complete Streets Plan. I would imagine when we have more direction of where we're heading towards, I think that's when we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think right now, the North Central Complete Streets Plan, we have our priority input from the community of what they care about. Lighting, slowing down speeds are like the top 2. And once we figure out what the auxiliary projects that affects North Central is, we can probably come to some type of closure for that project. And just to mention, we just want to ultimately lump that back into the Complete Streets Plan.
And as quickly and thoroughly as we possibly can. You talked a lot about garage spaces, our garage spaces, but there are a lot of sort of peripheral garages beyond Kiko, sort of the public-private ones, whether it's Verkada or the other ones. Will those be included in wayfinding efforts? Because there is a lot of space there.
I think that's something we're considering. I think at the parking slide, I'm trying to get to it now. We also have 8 private garages that have shared use agreements with the city. And it's on a website, but honestly, physically in the roadway, it's not quite noticeable. So that's something that we would consider and take a look at.
So that'll be a consideration as part of the downtown specific plan that we'll be looking at. So that'll
Over
get
the
folded
next
in
2
there.
years, right?
That's correct.
I'm just wondering if there's something that can be done before that. So just to, because if that's an issue. And then also one of the public comments was about San Mateo Drive between Tilton and Poplar. Is that on your radar?
It doesn't ring the bell right now, but we have a lot of projects. I have to look at it in totality and see if there are some improvements in that area.
Yeah. Okay. I think I will stop there. Thank you very much. I look forward to really digging into this, and I'm sure there will be lots of other data points that I would love to track that I'm sure you'll hear about. Thank you.
Jay, thank you so much again for that. It was, it was great. It had my attention. I really appreciate your really great focus on data and your presentation style as well. So just a couple of things. Are we looking at, for the downtown parking challenges, I went on a tour of Kiku Crossing last week as part of Affordable Housing Month. And the parking lot there was like literally empty. Have we looked, I know other cities do like parking apps or anything. Have we looked at something like that? That kind of like a park in San Mateo kind of thing? I know other cities have done apps for parking that kind of direct you to where the vacants are or something that's close to where you want to go.
Not specifically for utilization, but I think it talks about the slide before or the slide after this. There's a couple of initiatives that we're looking into, and one is accessibility for parking. We're looking at multiple vendors. I think obviously pay by phone, you know one, but obviously for permitting as well, we want to look at what type of online solutions are available. So not necessarily an app, but we're looking at third-party support, but potentially even how do we integrate our existing downtown or smart downtown technology project into our system, and maybe a platform or provider can go ahead and help market that a little bit more. But I think our immediate implementation are wayfinding signs to direct people to look at areas that are underutilized.
Okay, great. Oh, I'm sorry, Christina.
So if I may just make a suggestion for the Kiku underutilization or offer some information. Aside from promoting it on all of our communications channels, which we do have a regular rotation for doing it and also for bolstering that, because we do understand that it's underutilized. Some of the suggestions we have heard from community members are that it may be helpful to consider the name of the garage, which though it is reflective of the culture and that part of the title could be retained, that it could be useful to augment the name to make it more descriptive of its location, because a lot of folks, when they hear the name, they don't know where the garage is located. And when you see it on a map or when you do a map search, it doesn't come up all the time. And I myself have looked for the garage on a Google search or a map search, and it doesn't come up. And it's also just is not descriptive. People don't know where it's located. And so that is something that council could consider in the future if you wanted to make it more locatable. Another thing that we are doing is when construction projects come online, the workers during the early stages of construction, they come to work in their personal vehicles and they need a place to park. And sometimes there can be upwards of 100 of them. And so they can obtain parking permits, the monthly parking permits to park in that location. They come to work in passenger vehicles. And so we have seen an uptick in that. And so when some of the activity starts at those sites, we will be seeing more utilization of that garage. And so I would offer, until such time that the buildings are actually constructed and we see more occupation of some of the buildings in the downtown, we do expect to see some of the workers occupying that building.
Great. Thank you for that context, Christine. I appreciate it. And I would be here to move, I don't know what the motion would be, but like calling it the Kiku Downtown Garage or something. I'd be down for that. I do want to reiterate, just kind of piggybacking on what Councilmember Swerko-Guditsky said about the loss of federal dollars with regard to the projects that we have, bike lanes, beyond bike lanes, pedestrian safety projects. I would love for us to consider having a dedicated bike lane budget, if that is something that the city manager might address.
So I know as part of these bike projects, there are cost sharing programs that we have to go ahead and basically have to also pitch in a certain amount. So it's not 100% fully funded from the grants. Usually there's some type of match. And so that's where our limited budget, if we're looking at, we try to utilize overall on the matching piece. It's something that we can take back the feedback and see exactly how much we have within our current budget. Specifically, it would be the general fund budget, which we're running a $15.2 million deficit at the same time, but something that we can look at as part of the CIP.
Great. And then just the last point, Jay, I was really excited to hear about how we're streamlining and computerizing the parking permit program. I think that we're going to be saving some money in the digitization and of that. Bringing it back to District 2, where are we on exploring a parking permit program in North Central?
We receive a lot of new RPP programs continuously. I think as part of the Humboldt Bike Lanes Alternative effort, there would be a process of understanding supply and demand. If you recall, one of the biggest takeaway of having an effective program is understanding what the demand is. And if we're to implement that program, I think is mentioned in February, it would be the biggest RPP zone that we would have in the entire city. We want to make sure we understand in terms of how many permits we're issuing, and we're not issuing more permits than there are space available. So there is a little bit of data analysis work that needs to be occurred, but that's something that staff will look into.
Okay, just as the council member for that area, I do want to just reiterate my support for us exploring something like that. And that's all for my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll bring it home. Jay, great presentation. I echo what some of the people in the public, might have been Mr. Simpson said, which is I wish we had a little bit of a preview and to some of the data. I mean, yeah, obviously it's a lot more fun to have it all presented, but it also makes it hard to come in very prepared when we've read all this documentation and then it's like, oh wait, there's more. It also slashes about half my questions, which is great because you've answered so many. So thank you. I do have a few things that I'll kind of go through as quickly as I can. Obviously, my biggest concern is how do we pay for things with 85% being federally funded and, the scare of potentially not seeing a lot of federal funding in California and particularly the Bay Area. I concur with what most people I think here have said, which is I think we need to keep moving quickly to get stuff done. And I see that there was, I think it was 48% that are the high projects. And I think that's where we should be putting our focus as long as we can until we start seeing, hopefully we don't, but I'm sure we will start seeing funding dry up. So I think that needs to be where we put all of our pressure and all of our focus now. When it comes to safety, I think everyone on this council agrees that safety is paramount. I want to make sure that we continue to look at the ped and bike accident data, evaluating the most urgent needs, and we continually bubble those to the top. And I think we're doing that. It really shows well in your presentation. I do want to make sure that we are considering the impacts of Measure T development zones and transit corridors because we're going to see a concentrated population growth of probably 10 to 12% within those zones in the city. And we have to find that balance of making sure that we are being bike and ped friendly, but also that if we're adding that much more population, that we're cognitive of that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot. And I think, the plus side, which is the exciting data, was that car ridership is down, which is fantastic. I was a little surprised that we have more bicyclists used by only a percentage than pedestrian. And then I realized it's probably true because, we don't see as many bikes, but the reality is a bike goes at a much faster rate of speed. So maybe that's probably accurate. Would like to continue to see safe ped and sidewalk crossings. I think we heard about that specifically a few areas that I've heard multiple times in the past year. San Mateo Drive near Tilton, we actually had a group of neighbors talking to us, and you helped with that earlier in the year. So I heard that again tonight. I've heard a lot about it from people in Hillsdale area, especially the school. And it really is a weird observation in that we have way more streetlights around the Aragon corridor than we do around Hillsdale High, and we should get some parity there and make that a safer area. Less sexy things. Streetlight LED conversion. I heard, and I don't know if you talked about this, that we're getting close to 80% LED. What do we think is the timeline to completing LED conversion and low voltage circuit LED conversion?
So our high voltage streetlight conversion project right now is projected to be completed sometime in 2027. So when that's completed, about 250 to 300 streetlights would be converted over to LED. Now, in that process, I want to say we're probably 60% there. The remaining streetlight fixtures pertain to like unique neighborhoods. I want to say Bay Meadows is one. They have metal highlights that is custom to that community. There's over 350 of those, close to 400 there that we honestly don't have a standard for. So a bulk of the remaining 1,000 fixtures is from Bay Meadows that currently are metal highlights. And we're looking and testing options to ultimately remove that because it is a maintenance and operation consideration at this moment. Yeah. LED street lighting for us lasts on average anywhere from 6 to 8 years. So
yeah, absolutely.
A lot better in metal highlight.
Do we also see a reduction in power costs, or do we pay power costs for streetlights?
We do see a reduction. So we have LS2 standard tariff, so it's by wattage. So depending on what the fixture is, you get billed the same amount every single month, but there is a significant reduction. We did our major conversion back in 2012 to 2018, and we saw upwards of 60% energy savings during that time.
Fantastic. Food delivery services, particularly downtown, but not just downtown, also in like 25th Avenue corridor and Bay Meadows. I've walked in the last 3 weeks. I've walked downtown with my family and had meals downtown. I'm seeing the cool new scrambles that we have, and then I cringe because I literally don't think I've been down there and not seen Uber Eats or the app-based delivery companies parking in the middle of the scramble and then getting in the car and leaving while people are crossing in the scramble. And it just seems to me like it's at some point going to be disastrous. And I think we've talked about it, but I don't know if we've brought forward the idea of having some designated areas where maybe it's only 5 or 10 minute parking, and not having them in the middle of those intersections, especially for downtown, would be really important. I don't know if that's been brought up or it's on your radar, but something I think we should continue to try to find a solution for. And like I said, not just downtown. Like I've heard that a lot from the Bay Meadows. There's like 6 restaurants and they have said the same thing. There's no short-term parking, even 15-minute parking for anyone. And then there's no way to go in for apps. And that is difficult for the companies to survive. And then it's also dangerous because inevitably what happens is these rideshare drivers are parking in places they shouldn't be, like the middle of an intersection with pedestrians crossing. So that was that. This is a very pie in the sky thing, but has the city reviewed or done any consideration to having a dedicated bike pedway that goes along the rail lines and connects the 3 stations? And I've been looking at this a lot lately, and in fact was talking to Dana from the event center. They have a strip of land as well that's like a gravel parking lot, but it would not be a huge reach to be able to run a bike lane directly along. And, you know, I lived in Europe when I was right out of college, and it's very common in Germany. It's very common in the Netherlands and Scandinavia that they have like I want to say it's 10 feet, but it's not feet there, it's meters. But they have something that's like 2 5-foot bike lanes, completely protected, that runs along the rail corridors. And I'm wondering, have we done any look into that to see if that would even be feasible? Because if we did something like that, there's significantly less crossings and also it doesn't get any safer than being completely enclosed, and not having to be, competing with cars. So I'm just wondering, is that something that's been looked at?
I can't speak for historically, but I can say my time here as an engineering manager, I have not seen a thorough review of that. It is not in our proposed bike master plan. I think you're talking about the north-south connectivity for a couple of stations,
for sure.
Downtown Hayward Park, Hillsdale. Right now, there's a mixture in the proposed network from class 4s to 2s to even some shared facilities to make that happen. But specifically to the proposal you mentioned, we have not looked into that.
Okay. I'm sorry. A few other things. Parking garages. I think we've talked about this quite a bit. But one suggestion that I would have that I think the city could do, but I don't know what it takes to do this, is when we have special events in downtown, we should be folding into it the promotion of that Kiku Crossing garage, for example. I told people last year when it was Parade last year that it was free parking, and then found out, oh wait, the free parking is ended, and so I had to go around telling everybody, don't worry about it. If you get a ticket, I'll reach out to the city because I told you something that was not true. But that to that end, Pride is coming in a couple weeks, and there's a lot of people that come into town. I think when we have these events, or when we have Head West, for example, coming in the last Saturday and Sunday of the month, it would be interesting to have that as part of the promotion of that, promoting that, hey, we have free event parking during that time in that parking lot. Because once you know where it is and you have familiarity with it, all of a sudden you're like, oh, why would I not use this parking lot? It's way convenient. So I think in addition to, I like the idea of maybe rebranding the name so that you know where it actually is. Because if you try to find Kiku Crossing, there is no such street as Kiku Crossing. And it sounds like it's a place, but it's confusing. And then along the idea of the apps, I've noticed, and as you go further, from west to east in the city, a lot of the apps don't have the school zones mapped as well on the eastern schools. And this really bugs me, but my kids go to Aragon now, and when I'm around Aragon, when I do drive them, my car beeps and says I'm in a school zone. But when I'm in my own neighborhood of Sunnybray and I drive literally down the street to the school, I get no similar beep. So I know this sounds weird, but I want to make sure that as we work with these apps, that we're making sure that we're getting all of our school zones, private and public schools, mapped into those apps, because it helps. It also helps when there's traffic because it diverts people away from the school zones, and if there's an accident on the 101 freeway, it doesn't send them down Delaware Street. It sends them down another street. It routes them away from the schools. So I don't know how we do that, but I want to make sure that as we're working with the app-based developers, that we're looking at that. I think I had one more. Something that was brought up to me a couple weeks ago was that the city kind of, maybe as a part of the pandemic, lost a lot of the bike and scooter share programs. I'm wondering if there's been any appetite to try to bring that back, or do we think that that's something that just is more passé now?
Yeah, in 2018, 2019, the city issued like a temporary suspension prohibiting scooter business commercial activity in the city. We had a couple that were experimenting. And honestly, since that resolution was adopted, we have not seen a lot of interest from the community. We recently received our first one in the last 3 years for a bike share program. We're entertaining them. I think it's a company, I want to say from China, but they have not submitted a formal shared mobility application yet. But our planning team, Nikki specifically, has been the one that's talking to them, but nothing has evolved from that at the moment.
Okay. Well, I've asked you plenty of questions, so thank you so much for all your answers. Great presentation. Anybody else have anything we need to add? Yes. Councilmember Sorgo Kadiki.
I'm sorry. I forgot to mention this, but this has come up. To add to the 200 million lighting projects, the newly paved 3rd Avenue Creek Trail, there's been a few resident requests for a light at night. It's very dark. So we can add that as our 61st unfunded project.
I think you're underselling it. All right. Well, now we will move on. So you have the direction you need from us?
I got the direction. And I just want to say, really appreciate the kind words, but there's a tremendous team in traffic, from engineers to planners, that really made this happen, from pulling the metrics to working in conjunction. I mean, Matt and Kat, if you would have seen them at reviewing the deck, they didn't like a specific color. I just want to mention my boss, Kat, can tell the difference between a size 11 and 10 font. So a lot has went into it, but really appreciate the kind words.
Well, yeah, thank you to your entire team, not just you alone, and continue to bring us data, because data really helps us make decisions. So thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, moving backwards, we're now going to go back to old business and talk about the budget. Where the heck is it? There it is. So we're going to go backwards to item 22, the fiscal 25-26 proposed budget and 25 to 30 capital improvement program review. We're going to have a presentation from our finance director, Karen Huan. We're going to be reviewing the fiscal year 25-26 proposed budget and the 25 to 30 capital improvement program, and conduct a public hearing prior to the scheduled adoption at the June 16th, 2025 City Council meeting. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Okay, let me settle in first. Tonight, I'm here to present the fiscal year 2025-26 proposed budget and the 5-year capital improvement plan. And the proposed budget reflects our continued commitment to maintain the city services and investing in our infrastructure, and also responsibly addressing our long-term financial sustainability issues. Page. Doesn't move. Okay. Keyboard doesn't. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry. So we'll start off with the budget timeline, and then we move on to the citywide proposed budget. And we focus our presentation on the general fund budget for next year, and followed by the CIP 5-year plan. And at the end, we will wrap up with our challenges and what's our financial sustainability plan, what we have done so far. So to recap, we kick off the budget process back in January, and through February and April, we have held budget study sessions. And that brings us to tonight, our first public hearing for next year's budget. And staff is going to bring the item back to you in our second public hearing, which is June 16. The proposed budget has been published on the city's website, so it's available for everyone. Now, let's take a quick look at just really high-level citywide budget. Our proposed budget for next fiscal year 25-26, citywide, all fund included, is at $333.5 million. As you can see on the pie chart here, the green one, the light green pie is our general fund budget, which it's a little bit more than half, at 52% of our general fund. is the biggest piece of the pie. And about 20% of our total budget goes to our utility funds. The main fund is the sewer fund and the newly formed stormwater fund. There's a typo there. And followed by our contribution to capital projects, which is nearly 20%, over $61 million putting in our capital. And the rest is other funds. Next, we have the general fund's proposed budget. On the expenditure side, as you can see, our budget actually allocate a lot of funding to our public safeties. Police and fire combined account for total 56% of the general fund's budget. And it followed by parks and recreation, library, public works, and the other city functions. So combine all the budget need for next year, our proposed budget for general fund expenditure total $187.7 million. On the revenue side, our budget projection is at $172.5 million. As we have discussed previously through our budget preview, 80% of the general fund's revenue coming from tax revenues. And the biggest piece of the tax revenues are property tax, sales tax, and property transfer tax. These three are our top three tax revenue. And combine all the taxes, they account for 80% of general fund total revenue. And the general fund's revenue is actually built based on these budget assumptions. Our assessed value growth is projected at 4%, and property transfer tax and TOT are projected based on baseline budget, and sales tax is going to stay flat, and all other revenue either stay flat or growing modestly. So overall, general funds revenue are projecting stay relatively flat next year. We have shared with Council again and again our concern about VLF shortfall, and this chart is probably not the first time Council have seen it. The yellow line is our entitlement. If there's no funding issues, this is a really nice revenue. It grow up with our property assessed value. So if there's no shortfall issues, then this is really a nice chart to see. The problem is the only funding we project that is going to come in is the blue bar, which is the available funding. And the orange is the shortfall that we project. It's bad right now, but it will get worse. As more and more schools flipping from basic A to non-basic A, the funding mechanic is broken and there's no fix at side right now. So this issue will continue and become a major concern as we go. The best scenario is that the state continue to use their general fund to backfill us. And although it's 2 years late, but it's still the best case scenario, which show on this chart at the purple line, I believe. Yes, that's the purple line. The red one is that we take a discount thinking maybe if we don't get 100% backfill, then we get a reduced level, which is still better than nothing. So when we build our general fund 10-year forecast, we are using this conservative middle ground approach. So combine all that, we have a side-by-side comparison of last year's adopted budget and this year's proposed budget. As you can see, the first line is our total revenue. It's really flat. We are projecting a total increase of 1.5% only. And on the expenditure side, our personnel cost is contained at only increase at 1%, which is because we have taken in some measure, which is reducing our set aside for workers' comp because we have excess reserve. And we also increase our capital staff chargeback as a cost recovery measure. So without those, our personnel cost actually is going to go up about 5% because of scheduled labor cost increase, benefit increase, medical costs and pension costs, and all that drive up our staffing costs. But with certain measure that we took place here, we are able to contain our personnel cost budget for next year. So without counting in our contribution to capital project funds, our deficit for next year actually is only at 6.3 million, not the 15.2. But once you bring in our contribution to capital, that's where our funding gap suddenly become larger. And that's where we get to our $15.2 million projected deficit. So with that, I would like to move on to our next session, which is our capital budget. We have our Public Work Director, Matt Faby, here. If you have any question, he will help us answer those. But let's go through the number first. So here is our 5-year capital improvement plan by project category. As you can see, it's a 5-year plan. Year 1 is our proposed budget. Year 2, 3, 4, 5 are our projection. The proposed budget totals $61.5 million. And the out years combine all 5 years. As you can see here, it's a total commitment of $270 million, including all funding sources. Some of the highlights for our CIP projects is, one, our clean water program, our new water sewer treatment plant expansion is going to complete next year, next fiscal year. And our smooth street, we will continue to commit $8 million a year to it. Storm and flood control master plan is going to complete by the end of 2025. By that time, we will have a priority list, knowing which project we need to do first and how to prioritize our funding. We have a lot of aging facilities, so we will continue to contribute and maintain our facility. But one of the highlights is Marina Library. We are going to start our construction in the summer. So hopefully, in a year or a year and a half, we will have a brand new library branch. Parks and Recreation Facility, we also continue to contribute funding to do sports court resurfacing parks, East Hillsdale Parks, and all the facility that need upkeep. So I want to highlight on the bikeway and pedestrian safety improvement. When Jay came to the CIP meeting, he need money, and he worried that because he understands what our budget deficit, he worried he will not get the funding he needed. And we actually allocated $650,000 from Measure CC to improve some pedestrian safety projects that he have asked funding for. If we wait for federal grant to come in to do those projects, we will have to keep waiting. But because of those are high priority, we actually, even though money are tight, funding are really tight, we still manage to provide funding. And we even added additional $700,000 for the high voltage lighting, street lighting project for the funding he need to complete that project. So when money is tight, we still manage to get those high priority projects done. Okay, this is worth mentioning that we have unfunded project. Based on the list I have, it total $352 million. But the list, I think the project cost estimate was done a couple of years ago. Based on what we have seen, construction costs have gone up significantly over the years. This number may have to be refreshed, and our unfunded project costs might be higher than what we have on the list. Now let's come back to talk about general fund and the challenge that we have faced. So as we have discussed at different time when we provide council with regular financial updates, this is not the first time council have here that we are facing a structural deficit issues. And the main driver for that is our revenue are growing slower than we hope it will. So revenue overall stay relatively flat. And VLF continue to be a concern, major concern. And expenditure, the cost to provide service continue to rise. And we have a lot of aging infrastructure and facilities. So all these elements combined tell us one story, which is our revenue base right now is not sufficient to meet all the operational needs and the capital needs, and that create an imbalance. So the chart here is the 10-year look back of our general fund history. The red line on top is our baseline revenue, and the bottom, the green, is our baseline expenditures. So 10 years ago, we are okay. But now, as you can see, especially the recent years, the red line is really flattened. It's really flat. And expenditure is rising gradually at a normal pace, but our revenue are not growing with it. So, so that's where the structural deficit come in. I hope this picture can explain what happened. And also, if we look forward 10 years forecast, as you can see, we always take a conservative approach on our revenue projections. And so on the expenditure side, it's always our spending limits, which is the legal authority. Council approve a budget, that's our ceiling, that's the maximum spending limit that we can have. But in the general fund forecast, we actually factor in some of the budget savings that we might get at the end of the fiscal year, so we can create a better picture for you to make decision on. And we still get deficit, some double-digit deficit for the next 10 years. So we have talked about financial sustainability plans, and here are some of the measures that we have planned, and some have actually completed, and the other are in progress. So back in April, we brought the general fund reserve policy for council consider, and actually in this proposed budget, we have incorporated those proposed change based on council direction. So this one has been completed, and through that, we right-size the general fund reserve to a level that we feel comfortable and release funding that we can put into our infrastructure to free up funding to invest in our infrastructure. On expenditure control, we have reduced discretionary spending wherever we can, and each city department have worked on and completed a 2% and 4% budget reduction proposal. Coming June and July, we are going to review those proposals, but we are not taking those proposals yet, because that means we will reduce services once we implement those proposals. We are not taking that step, but we are reviewing it. And also, we have been looking at our vacancy positions, and if they are non-essential and vacant, before filling them, we have to carefully assess whether we fill those positions. On the revenue enhancement side, we have done a couple things to improve our cost recovery. And also, in this post-budget, we have incorporated a couple measures to use special revenue fund first before we tap into general fund. So those are all in motion already. Grant funding, we have the consultant already they went to work, and we have seen a lot of action going, but federal grant fund has been limited, and there's more uncertainty these days. Economic development is going to come to council soon, but this topic is going to take a long time to see it come to fruition, so it will not likely to provide us immediate relief. The last one I put in here is a potential revenue measure for the upcoming actually not upcoming, in another year, November 2026 ballot. In order to improve our general fund tax revenue base, this is potentially something we have to look into. In order to continue the service level, continue to put money into our infrastructure, we have to have enough funding to fulfill those needs. So those are the financial sustainability plan action items that we have completed, in progress, and in planning phase. That concludes my presentation tonight, but I also want to take this opportunity to thank the executive team, their budget staff, and also our finance budget team here with us tonight. Thank you. Special thanks to Abby Wisa, our Deputy Finance Director, Renee Halcon, our Budget Manager, Samantha Wong, our Senior Accounting Assistant. This is a small but mighty budget team. Without them, this budget cannot come together like this. Excellent job. Thank you. And I will welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you for a great presentation. Thank you to all of your team for everyone's hard work. Before we go into comments, do we have any public comment?
No requests to speak in chamber, and I'm not seeing any hands raised in our virtual environment, so no speakers on this item.
Then I will close public comment for the last time tonight and open it up to questions, comments, feedback from the council. Does anybody want to go first? Okay. Councilmember Diaz-Nash, thank you.
Karen and team, thank you so much. I know we've seen much of this before, but really coming back and thinking about it again is incredibly helpful. And, the thank you, City Manager, for your transmittal message. It was incredibly depressing, but it was what it needed to be. It was, here's reality, but here are the opportunities. And I think that's very important in terms of what you do, in terms of what we say, to do that. And it was also, it's very clear. It's not as if we're trying to hide things. We are here and here are the options. But yeah, I had to take a walk around the block after I first read it. So, but anyhow, I mean, relative to other cities, yes, we are in an incredibly strong position. So I think that's the message out. Couple questions. Are you modeling, not for necessarily putting in directly in the budget, but modeling what could happen for different levels of reduction in federal grant funding, either directly to us or federal grant funding to the state, and therefore state reduction to us?
Yes, actually, we didn't model it in a scientific way, but because of the federal funding reduction, it actually impact our state budget. And state of California went from January proposed budget with a budget surplus to the main revision with a significant budget deficit. And because now the state of California is in a budget deficit situation, our VLF backfill is also in danger. So, federal grant funding usually are one-time funding to fund one-time projects. So if we are in a structural deficit situation, federal grant funding is a good supplement, but not something we rely on to fund our ongoing needs. So it's a nice thing to have if we do get federal grant funding, so we can do some big and meaningful CIP projects that we don't have that kind of funding for. But what we need actually at the moment is ongoing, reliable revenue. Otherwise, we have to really look and see whether we can afford this kind of service level. If we cannot afford it, then we really have to go back to see what can we afford and make that kind of hard decision to balance the budget, because we cannot keep going like this. The good news is that actually we have a strong position to begin with. A lot of the city, they may not necessarily have a huge serve like us. And because of the prudent practice that the previous council and current council and city leadership have, that we actually have a strong position that can actually support us for the next couple of years. At first, we plan to ride this out when housing market start become active again. Property transfer tax will come back. Revenue from property tax, just the basic property tax will start rising again. But we have waited for 2 years now. Housing market haven't come back. Interest rate is still high. And that doesn't take away the TOT have dropped from $7 million baseline to $4 million. We lost $3 million TOT forever because of a major hotel closure. And that money is significant. And sales tax is not going to have a significant rise in the near future. If it come in slowly go up and not coming down, that's the best scenario that we can see. So that's how we evaluate all those revenue projection in incorporating the outlook for federal grant funding.
Thank you. And just as we asked the Public Works team what their plans were for managing the impact of all the new development that will be coming, there will be impact on finance as well, because longer term there might be property tax, but there will be less shopping, certainly in Hillsdale. How are you thinking about all that?
I think that in our city's general plan updates, it have a financial forecast element to it. As our population growth, as the city change, we have to make sure the general plan, including the element that we can continue to fund those services and adapt to those changes.
And just from a land use perspective, when you look at the number of housing units, those are more resource intensive for the city as we have to service all the new buildings compared to what would be the commercial properties itself. But we also have to look and see how that we have to make sure that we have the appropriate number of police officers, firefighters, dedicated staff to service those amount of units. And so that's something that we're tracking. It's something that was part of just the overall assessment as part of the general plan process. But we'll continue. It's just like how we're making significant investments right now with the police department, our real-time information center. We're working with technology to help leverage that. If we can't get all the personnel resources, so to speak, at the moment, but we have to take a longer view and longer picture to make sure that we're resourcing our community appropriately with especially public safety moving forward.
But yes, okay. And then I was looking in the chart about capital projects 25, 26, and 25 to 30 capital improvement plan by function. And can you explain to me, I'm assuming it's project related, why the parks budget is so volatile? It goes up and down and up and down and up and down. Goes from 6.4 to 2.7 to 6.4 to 1.8.
I think I can probably try to explain that, because I think year one, we have earmarked $2.6 million for the joint wheel swimming pool. And
I really didn't want you just sitting in the back there doing nothing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Joanne McGreeny, Park and Rec Director. Our projects vary because we use the funding from Park in Lieu and Park Impact fees for the parks. So facilities is actually under a different category. So we base it on the income that we're going to get is how we determine what projects we'll be doing each year. So that's how we do our estimation. And we do an average over a certain amount of years, and I think it was $2.7 million. Some years we get more than that. Some years we get yet less than that. So that's what we estimate.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I do want to mention there's actually some small number incorporated into those roll up total here that, but I want to highlight it this year because it's something new. We actually benchmark budgeted $350,000 each year, every year for sports and play structure resurfacing. And that's a small number blended in. You don't see it, but it's something new. We started to do systematic approach to tackle our sports court and make sure they are in good condition instead of when something get into a point that must to be fixed and we put money in. So we also actually put in $450,000 each year for our play structure equipment replacement. We also put in fencing, annual commitment to improve our parks and picnics, and put in fencing and shade area to make sure.
Great.
So basically what we have is we've assessed a lot of our facilities, and we have basically a timeline of the useful life of the facility or its use itself. And so we're programming. A good example would be just our roof replacement program. You'll see over the next, I believe it's 5 years, you'll see $1 million each and every year being invested. And we already know which roof in year 3 we need to get to. And it's planning proactively to make sure that we're protecting our investment for the taxpayer in the long run. And so that's just a different way, a new way that we're doing it here in San Mateo, being able to proactively invest those monies and those dollars.
And we're very supportive of that. And then final question, the smooth streets, the $8 million a year, the streets that had to be totally recreated or redone, they're going to be finished, is it next year? And then what's the $8 million? Is that just going to be regular maintenance, or are we?
Yes, I believe the Smooth Streets program is supposed to be done by the end of calendar year 2026, and that was a defined set of failed streets. And then I believe that the $8 million is more our annual commitment to just our pavement maintenance overall. And so that, related to Jay's presentation earlier, as part of our challenge is that we get about $10 million of dedicated transportation revenue every year, but we're having to use about 80% of it just to continue to maintain our pavement condition. And so, we do have the Smooth Streets program. We also have 2 different types of annual pavement maintenance programs. That some of it is annual rehab and some of it is more of our crack sealing and slurry sealing. That's more just the surface treatments. And so that's what that $8 million is going to on an ongoing.
And once again, all the development, we're going to be figuring out how much they're going to be destroying the roads and making sure.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to look at with our staff is that construction management plan that Jay looked at, is that I do have concerns that, we're going to have negative impacts on our roadways as all of this construction, making sure that we're building in a process to get those roadways maintained as part of those development projects. So
get paid for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I'm done. Appreciate it.
Karen, thank you so much. Great presentation. Thank you to the finance team as well. $352 million in unfunded capital improvement. I just want to remind everybody that I ran for office because of flooding, because we didn't dredge a lagoon for 65 years. So I think that it would be beneficial for us and behoove us to potentially put together a committee of 1 to 2 council members to explore what a ballot measure is, so we can actually get a plan together to start funding these projects so we can continue to service our growing community. So I'm just wondering if there's support for that.
Absolutely.
So are there 2 council members that are willing to step up?
Absolutely.
I'd do it.
Okay. So I see Councilmember Danielle Swerko-Goditsky and also Councilmember Nicole Fernandez are willing to step up for a revenue measure ad hoc committee.
Yep.
And this is not only for capital, but it's for ongoing general services as well that we'd have to investigate and bring back information to the full council for consideration.
Thank you, ladies, for taking that on.
Thank you so much. And I did just want to also add to this $352 million, if we could possibly explore folding in bike infrastructure into that, since I know we just talked about transportation.
I believe it's included. I'll look over to our
Yes.
public works director.
Yeah, I think we try to do a better job this year of adding in projects from the bike master plan. I will say that wasn't aware when we were doing the unfunded that we also had the 200 million in lighting projects. And so
Wonderful.
I don't think our unfunded list fully accounts for all of the lighting. I think that some of the lighting projects are on there, but I'm gonna have to go back and look at that with our staff. But we may have, a significant chunk of lighting projects that need to be added to that list as well. But we're trying to be more diligent about making sure that if we have things that are identified in our master plans that aren't on the funded list, that we make sure that they're on the unfunded list so that council and the public has a full picture of what our needs are.
Great. And thank you so much for doing so much on a shoestring budget. Hopefully, San Mateans will be interested in giving more. That's it for me. Great job, Karen.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor? Nothing? Okay. Well, thank you for a great presentation. I do have a couple of questions. I think we talked about this earlier tonight, but what are we doing to look at fees? For example, can we explore fees for parking at certain garages that are in more demand, having higher rates, and then ones that have less demand having lower rates? Can we use digital signage to, steer people towards the other? I mean, obviously we want them to pay the bigger price, but can we fill the lots more by driving people to where there's available space? Are we looking at fees? I think we are for park and rec in terms of, are there things that we could be charging more for and still be competitively priced? Are there things we can be doing to increasing revenues? It sounds like we've got some ideas, but I also think we're continuing to see a TOT loss. I don't know if we've had any success getting Marriott to the table to find out what their actual plans are. But do we have any update on that?
So we did check in, and Oracle is the owner of Marriott, and so they're looking at probably a mixed use development. That's kind of what their interest would be over there. Of course, the city would love to see a hotel still at that site, so that is something of interest, and that's kind of part of the economic development strategy of the city to continue to make that clear, albeit, as part of even a mixed use development in the future, because the council did zone for a mixed use development over there, but we'd like to still see some type of hotel potentially on that site. Speaking of parking fees, that is something that we'll look at and compare how we compare to our other cities along the peninsula, and just make sure that we are at competitive pricing, so to speak. The other thing that we probably take a look at is also the hours. That'd be something to look at. You would have seen in those numbers, the 6 to 8 p.m. dinner hour that's 90% plus filled. We don't charge a fee for that time. Parking is for free. So that's something to also look at. We are subsidizing the parking downtown. So the rest of the taxpayers throughout the city are subsidizing the parking infrastructure in the downtown. And so that is something also to look at and consider. And so that's something we'll look at over the next probably 18 months with staff. And that's part of that financial sustainability plan, looking at our fees. Specifically on the recreation side, the council took action, actually, I believe 3 months ago. Maybe it was in April. Yep, April. The Parks and Rec directors nodding their head, yes. Those increase in fees will bring hundreds of thousands of dollars back into the city. And that's something that we were subsidizing previously, those costs. And so that helps replenish. So these are all gradual steps of a multi-pronged approach in looking at our long-term fiscal health.
Absolutely. And my last one was, I've seen a lot of the school districts are finding opportunities, for example, like with solar. Do we have any opportunities for things that we could be doing that would eventually, revenue generate, or reduce spend? Like if we have plenty of parking spaces, parking lots, would it help us be looking at putting solar on tops of buildings, or is the investment too high to make that jump?
So right now we have one project in the works over with PCE over at Beresford. So that'll be our first dipping our toes into this area of looking at the solar infrastructure over parking lots. But when you really look at, we're also trying to be, I'd say, more open to looking at our city's property, our real estate portfolio, and specifically even our parking infrastructure. we have an item where we're working right now with a hospital downtown of they have a parking need. And so we're looking at, we have basically 60 to 65 spaces available every day at the top of, what is that? The Second El Camino garage. And so if you look on Google Maps, you could see going back all the way to probably 2016, it's never parked. And so that's low utilization. And so we're looking at a licensing agreement with that hospital next door that'll bring in over 6 figures in new revenue to the city that we were not receiving previously. So we're looking at all different avenues to increase revenues for our city.
That's great. The only other thought I had was, this happens a lot in small and privately held companies is I think maybe an idea is to reach out to all citywide staff, maybe have something like a competition and go to citywide staff and say, how can you help us bring in more revenue for the city, or how can you help us reduce costs for the city? And I think a real grassroots campaign like that to all of our staff. I mean, our staff are fantastic people. They have great ideas. And I think, I think there's some there. It just, and I don't know how you would reward them, but I mean, you could make it a monetary reward. You could make it a extra day off type of thing. Obviously you have to figure all that out, but I would suggest that we definitely lean in on our team because they're one of our strongest assets, and let them see, hey, this is what's going on. Like, everybody come up with an idea. And when my family had our printing business for 17 years, and it's amazing the things you can come up with when you go, just little things like we can recycle better, we could do this better, and so I would really push to not make it bleak for staff, but make sure that we're messaging staff and we're utilizing that as a resource. So.
Absolutely. I think it's a great suggestion. It's something I can take back with our finance department, and maybe we can maybe put something together. And so I can circle back, give us a little bit of time. Sure. I know we'll be having a full-on all-staff town hall here later on this month to talk about the budget. And so it might be something that we can get out there for consideration to our entire staff team that we'll be presenting to.
Yeah, I think if anybody can solve the problem, it's our team. So we want to make sure everybody's involved from the ground up. That's all I have as far as questions and comments. Thank you so much for a fantastic presentation. We will move on to the last thing, which is reports and announcements. Thanks again, Karen. Does anybody want to go first with reports and announcements? Danielle, please.
Thank you. Really quick, June 14th is Pride in San Mateo. Parade starts at 10:30 a.m. in downtown, and it goes to Central Park until 5 p.m. So hope you can all make it.
Along those lines, I got an email asking if we wanted to register as a council. Can we do that? I mean, it's a public event. Can we register?
Yes, we can. We'll work it through the city clerk. I guess I should register myself too to be part of the event as well.
Yeah, they asked me today to make sure, because I guess we haven't done that.
Okay.
I told them, don't worry, we're all coming. I'm assuming we're pretty much all coming
Oh,
to
yeah.
it.
I've got my earrings. I'm ready.
All right.
Okay. We'll register as a group.
Thank you.
And is there an issue with Central Park, closing off the playground here?
So this year we're going to be utilizing the corner. What is that at? Fifth? Laurel and Fifth? Yes, Laurel and Fifth. So we're not
giraffe.
We're not, because the Central Park is under construction. You're seeing the fences going up right now. Yeah. We're going to be utilizing that corner. I think there's great opportunity to pilot this out, because then you really get to see how it interacts with the downtown there and energizes that corner at the same time. So as we're under construction, something that we'll have to.
We just need to
advertise it.
About that. Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Is that it? Okay. I'll go second. I attended the most recent PCE board meeting on behalf of the deputy mayor, and everyone should know he has now been voted into the executive committee of PCE. So congratulations. And for politically correct verbiage, cap and trade in California is now referred to as cap and invest. So everybody be up on that. Some really good news, though, in terms of membership participation in PCE. Atherton has 99.7% of all of their residents used PCE, Hillsborough 99.4, Menlo Park 99.2, and San Mateo at 99.1. So congratulations to us. And that's fantastic. And just a couple of big things that have happened. They approved, or I guess we approved the Right Energy Storage Project, which is the largest battery, which is years in coming in the entire scenario. And this will be so powerful. It's a 200 megawatt project, which is the equivalent of 850,000 solar panels. So some pretty good long-term planning, lots of detail, but that was good news. And they're also working on the beginnings of what will eventually be a microgrid network, which is really exciting. I can't wait to get my 2 electric cars onto the grid. So that was very exciting. Separately, the mayor and I and the city manager attended a meeting with Caltrain to bring up residents' concerns about the train noise and vibrations and the wall. And Caltrain was very responsive, very sensitive to what was going on. They're doing training and regular audits of the engineers on the trains to make sure that they're not being more unhappy, and looking to regulations to see what more can be done. And they are very interested in partnering with us on grant fundings for the quad gates so that we can get to the quiet zone and really be done with a lot of this noise. Vibrations was a sore point for a number of the residents along the track because we had a meeting here on the 30th of January, and that was when the last vibration test was supposed to be done. But they are doing another one closer to the residents of some of the people involved. And so in 2 weeks, city staff is going to follow up and have a meeting with Caltrain on that, and also the wall, and options, but that currently there is no funding to continue doing it. And also Caltrain acknowledged that they need to take the lead in terms of communication, and we need to be even stronger to really directing people to Caltrain so that we don't be the facilitator. It's their problem. It's not ours, but it's our residents. So that's really important. And then let's see what else was here. I don't know that we have to bring it up formally since it's report and announcements, but I would say we don't want to just look at Kiku. We want to look at the garage branding across the city, because I think we have a lot of them are locational, but they're all over the place too. So I would love to propose that as a future item on an agenda for staff to take a look at. I don't know if there's interest among other council members. It looks like they're, definitely. Yes, okay, great. Let's see, and I think the PCE, Caltrain, but I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Go ahead. Councilmember Fernandez.
I just want to highlight an event that's happening in my district on Saturday, June 7th. It's being organized in partnership with the North Central Handsome, the neighborhood association, but they're having an electronic waste, tire, mattress, and recycling drop-off in partnership with, it's going to be taking place at College Park Elementary, 715 Indian Avenue, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And priority goes to residents who live in San Mateo. And that's in partnership between Zero Waste Silicon Valley and the city of San Mateo. So I'm not sure I've seen anything advertised on our social media channels about that, but I'm hoping we could get something up this week.
Yeah, we'll note it. We'll get something out this week.
Thank you very much. The other item that I want to bring up is also pertaining to my North Central. We, as Mr. Simpson talked about earlier, we have I don't think it's unique to my district, but it seems to have a bigger preponderance in my district about fireworks, specifically in the North Central and North Shoreview areas around July 4th. I just want to give my compliments to Lieutenant Texera, who has been really responsive to my proactive constituents who've emailed him about fireworks. Last year, he went on a tour with me and another resident to point out places where we frequently receive fireworks complaints, and he's doing it again this year. we're ordering banners for MLK Park to note that the rules about fireworks. And so I just want to shout him out for him and let anybody in North Shoreview or North Central know that if they have any firework concerns, they can reach out to the PD. And then the last issue I want to bring up is, as you may know, I worked for former San Mateo mayor and former supervisor and former assembly member and former state senator Jerry Hill for many years, 6 years. It was a really great part of my career. And it's come up recently that he retired during COVID, and we never really did anything to honor his really great contributions to San Mateo and the greater District 2 supervisorial district on our greater peninsula. So Supervisor Corzo actually approached me with an idea about potentially doing something to honor Jerry for his amazing work in our community, and was wondering if the council would be on board with us potentially exploring naming a street after former Senator Hill.
Yeah.
Great.
I see nodding heads all the way through, so it's something we can take back and discuss with our public works
Never
team.
not a senator. Once you're a senator, you're.
You're right. He is a senator, because that's the highest ranking title he had. Very good. Yeah, what? We could potentially do that, but and many thanks to we'll honor Supervisor Corzo for her idea, but I want to thank Supervisor Corzo and County Executive Mike Callaghy for approaching us with the idea. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Adam. Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I'll be quick. I did, for what it's worth, Councilmember Fernandez, I spoke with Lance in our downtown coordinator at the PAL 5K mental health event, and he mentioned to me about the North Central e-waste event. So at least anyone who spoke with Lance will have heard about it, and I'm sure many more will hear about it. Yeah, exactly. Downtown, I mean, that's where the action is, as we heard in our last meeting. I did just want to mention, I want to thank Councilmember Diaz-Nash for attending the Peninsula Clean Energy meeting on my behalf and on behalf of the city, and bringing back a thorough report. And it reminded me that I had the opportunity of attending a different meeting last week in Mountain View. So I just wanted Andrea to know that I attended, and it was a discussion on the sort of the way forward with regard to reach codes. It was a meeting in partnership with Peninsula Clean Energy and Silicon Valley Clean Energy. It was actually technically a special meeting of Silicon Valley Clean Energy, so it was pretty cool to take that in. We had a special guest in the form of California Energy Commissioner, Mr. McAllister, and it was an inspiring night, and it made me look very much forward to our Electrify San Mateo next steps. And I believe that despite some potential obstacles in our way and setbacks, we will find a way forward. Thanks to the wonderful folks who work in this county and in the adjoining one. So I wanted to mention that, and I did happen to attend the mental health wellness fair and 5K run last Saturday with City Clerk Martin McTaggart, who smoked me on the Bay Trail. But it was a beautiful day to do it. So thanks to all who made that happen. It was cool to be with Chief Barberini and Captain Lathine and a number of other folks who make PAL great. And that's what I can remember to share at this time.
Okay. I try to figure out what we didn't cover. Reminder, tomorrow, Best of San Mateo Awards by the Chamber of Commerce, CSM High School. College of San Mateo, Building 10, 5:30. It's sold out. Yeah. Well, you could crowd the door and see if you get somebody's. We have a Flag Day ceremony of if any of you guys can come out in the middle of the day. That's 6/12. We have Head West downtown on June 15th, and the only other thing I wanted to make sure we call out was that we thanked the clerk and his staff. For the last month, we have spent a tremendous amount of time interviewing boards and commissioners, and I don't know that we've ever sworn in that many at one time in the history of recent times. So fantastic work to all of you, and thank you all for giving up. Thank you all for giving up your month of May with me. It's been a little weird. I actually have had a few days this month that I'm not with you guys, and it's good to see my family. So anyhow, that said, there's anything else? Yes.
Just want to give a May Meadows parking update. Our Assistant City Manager, Christina Horsberger, will do that.
Thank you. So I just wanted to circle back and let you all know that we circled back with our subgroup of representatives from the Bay Meadows community. And we let them know that we would report back to the council that we did have our regroup and that we would ask the council if you wanted to have a study session to explore potential options for looking at the street parking durations in the Bay Meadows neighborhood.
I guess I would ask, have we had any success with partnering them with Franklin Templeton? Have they looked at other options? Are there homeowners associations doing anything on a private level in addition to what we could potentially be doing?
We asked them to explore every option at their disposal and advised them that the council would have an interest that they did do that. And they reported that they felt that they had done everything that they could already. They were not interested in pursuing a planning application right now, and they wanted to explore this option first. They may be interested in a planning application at some time in the future, but they were more interested in whether or not the council was interested in agendizing something and exploring potentially modifying the parking durations on the street.
It being my district, I would say that I'm still interested in learning more about opportunities, but I understand that resources are limited, so I put it to the rest of the council.
Rob, I really appreciate your advocacy for your community, but from my perspective, this particular area, when people were there, it was designed as a commuter-friendly neighborhood. And I think we need to stick with that because especially where we're headed as a city and building more transit-oriented and focused communities. So I'm a no for now.
I agree with Councilmember Spirko-Guditsky.
I agree with Councilmember Schwerger-Guditsky and the Deputy Mayor.
Okay, well, I will happily go down 4-1 on that. I would say, even that said, I want to make sure that as we build more transit-oriented developments, that we really do need to do put more thought into how the world has changed. And this has really been something that's come as a follow through with the pandemic. Where when we built this 15 years ago, people weren't working from home 3 days a week. They were going to work every day. And, we've seen this change, and we need to make sure that as we plan for our next transit oriented developments, of which there are many in the works, that we are considering what parking looks like for neighbors and how they're going to, house caregivers and how they're going to house babysitters and all that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have the direction we needed on that. Thanks.
All right. Well, with that, we will close it out.